Oh yeah, good point. You get the
So
chat up.
Okay, you realize you're recording right now, right? You're recording right now.
I didn't mean to be.
Well, is there a reason why you don't want to also record it?
It's a frightful strain on the system when you record and stream.
But we do it every week.
No, we don't. Not like this. We do a very simple setup. This is a complicated setup with a bunch of videos that run in the background. Trust me on this. It will happen last night when I was doing it. It got to the point where I got jumpy.
If you know what you're doing.
I don't. I
Well,
don't know what I'm doing.
Move your mouse off that so you don't accidentally click it again.
Well, I was going to try it here in the early thing and see how it
But
goes.
we're not doing anything complicated right now.
Well, yeah, but our stuff's just tacked on the end of this other setup, so it's all still running right now. So this should be as complicated as it gets theoretically. You know what I mean?
Not really, but I mean, as long as you know what you're doing.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I want to make that abundantly clear, and never have, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to start recording just pre-show here. We got a few minutes before we start and see how it goes.
We've already got people in here.
Oh, hi. Hey, everybody. Okay, let's get that out of here. Nothing's going to change on our show. I'm still going to post-produce that. All right, so our show is not getting done in real time. The Amigos, I'm going to try it. I forget what the hell. I'd like to do our show like this, so this is going to be my test run.
Well, like you said, it's just a lot more dangerous. I mean,
Yeah.
you're literally taking the only safety net we have. And
Well, I'm
going,
recording right now.
Safety net? We don't need no stinking safety
I'm recording
net.
right now. Look, it's us, eh? Now, see, you can tell if things go south, this will come and be like, oh, yeah, you're stinking. You're stinking up the joint. You know?
So, okay. What you're doing is really not a good idea.
Okay, so you want me to stop recording then?
No, listen to me.
Yeah.
You don't want YouTube playing on that computer while you're streaming.
I was getting ready to shut it down.
Okay,
right now.
that's you need to stop that for sure.
Okay.
Because that's a huge system.
See the CPU cycling right here, 49%.
Uh-huh.
As long as we stay under 100, we're laughing.
Yeah, recording now is doing the. You're not. I don't think you're going to put as much strain on the system. The only thing you don't want to strain is bandwidth. I don't even play the show while I'm in chat to save on the bandwidth.
Well, you can normally do that.
I'm not denying that we can.
Yeah.
But there's no reason to.
Well, I mean,
what benefit is it to have the show running right now?
It's a moral victory for technology.
But we don't like morals.
That's true. You got. I like. Wait a minute. What? I do.
No, you don't.
Hey, can you hear us? Okay, fellas, ladies. Everything good? We're gonna kick this thing up old school. Kick it up a notch.
We got 2 minutes. We don't want to go before the official release.
I'm not leaving.
Hey, are you wearing your thing? Why aren't you wearing your thing?
Can you be more specific? I haven't touched it since I gave it to you. I didn't want that thing. I don't like wearing that stuff, man.
Why?
But I'm gonna set it up. I haven't set it up yet.
But I mean, why?
I don't like wearing I don't wear jewelry and stuff. I don't like being bound by that stuff. I don't like it. It's a thing. I don't know.
Now
I'm the opposite of an S&M guy. I'm the guy that doesn't like. I don't like any of that.
I fully admit I don't either. I haven't worn a watch for over 20 years. Okay.
Yeah, hand me this.
However,
I'll need those. I'll post-produce those.
However, this has enough features that it's pretty cute.
Oh yeah, I mean they're I hope they didn't pay too much for that stuff.
They did. They paid several $100s.
Moms,
Or a couple $100s.
They've lost their minds.
But it makes you a lot more. The best thing about it is it makes you keenly aware of how many calories you've burned. I mean, I have burned 1,133 calories today.
Good
and
Lord.
It doesn't mean
how.
It doesn't mean these are the calories you've burned through exercise. Mm-hmm. This is how many calories your bodily functions, your heart rate, all that stuff.
My body must be far more efficient than yours.
No, I guarantee you as long as you accurately put in your weight.
It doesn't help you lose weight. It just tells you how much you're failing.
That's.
I don't need somebody to tell me that. I got a girlfriend. I'm just joking. I love you, honey.
Yeah, she's watching.
It's 9 o'clock. No time for Fitbit, Dr. Jones.
All right, well,
Let's get this pathetic code down.
Here's my final thing on this.
Yeah.
You can also set it up so you can get text messages through and stuff.
Oh, okay, like some sort of geek.
But I'm telling you, I don't like wearing watches. It still feels strange to me. However, it tracks your sleep too.
That's all I need. I can't wear long sleeve shirts. Same reason.
But
I can't handle it. I got a shirt just like that.
It tells you how much light sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, and how many times you wake up during the night.
All it's going to tell me is you don't get enough sleep, you fat loser.
But that's the thing. I have made a conscious effort to try to get more sleep because it's like, yeah, you're not even close.
Is that why you're so frosty this morning?
I don't even know what that means.
Frosty means on your top of your game.
I'm frosty because it's like 20 degrees outside and there's snow on the ground.
Kill the heater. We're going to remember this week. Kill it.
No.
You got to kill the heater while we're doing the show. You can hear it.
We will freeze.
We can turn it back on for a little bit after the show.
How about we do this instead? Instead of having it pointing towards us where you're going to hear the fan, we'll point it away from us and you won't hear the fan.
I will compromise. Hey, I don't like freezing anybody either, Dooley.
Because seriously, this place will freeze up. It's got snow in the roof.
Anything going on?
Hey guys, no, I agree. I don't like feeling something yet.
All right.
Wow, airport mania. We've got two folks at the airport.
Oh yeah, coming back from Ireland, no doubt. The place to be.
Yeah, Duncan also doesn't like the. I agree, Duncan. I'm not a watch guy, but
he's barely a guy.
I'm a big gadget guy, so I'm going to give it a go.
All right, Inspector, you ready to do this thing proper? I'm going to stop the recording, then start the recording again.
I know, because you're... No, that's stream.
Okay, I'm going to screw this up yet. All right. Assume the position of stupidity. And also make sure I'm recording after I hit record.
Do you have easy access to the wheel?
Oh, yeah, always, at all times.
Hey.
All right, you ready?
No, wait.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another action-packed, massive episode of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who puts the M in MMORPG. It's the BRENT himself, Brent.
I'm multiplayer?
No, massive.
No.
Massive. Oh, shoot. So, if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel, we made the deal. And this week, improbably, we're going to be playing games that were MMORPGs, massively multiplayer, online, role-playing games. Now, Brent, we both have a pretty long and colorful history with the MMO scene. Do you remember when you first broke in and what you were up to?
I've been playing MMOs for, nearly 20 years. I started with EverQuest, and I still play one today.
Very good, very good. I would contend that board games, or even a type of MMO, I wouldn't say it's an RPG, but to a certain degree it was. If you were playing something like Trade Wars or Space Dynasty or something like that.
BBS games.
That's right.
Not Monopoly and Settlers of Catan.
That's right. So those were sort of the kickoff point to the modern day MMO.
Okay.
And just for fun, and just, gosh, when are we going to be this way again?
Never.
I did a massive write-up here on, a massive roundup, would be a better way to put it, on the history of MMOs. It's actually quite fascinating. I didn't know any of this stuff. So I thought we'd kind of dip our toe in the pool of how MMOs came to be. So get this. Take a guess. When do you think the first, what's considered an MMO, came out?
Well, it'd be Ultima Online, right?
No. So very wrong.
Well, okay. It depends. If you're talking with including BBS games, I have no idea.
I'm talking a virtual world that allowed multiple players in it.
All right. Hit me with the name.
Maze War.
Yep, never heard of it.
1974 was the time.
Oh, well, come on.
Hey, I'm just telling you.
Come on.
This was this was an MMO that you played over serial cables on a big computer at MIT.
That's not massive.
And eventually they made it so you could play it across ARPANET, making that ARPANET, which was the predecessor to the internet, which I think was neat.
That's closer to massive.
You also had a thing called the Plato system, which is an educational computer system. This is also in 74. And this also had the MMO on it called Oblaet, which was written by a fellow named Jim Schwager. This was basically like a MUD, which, if you're not familiar with the term, it's a multi-user dungeon, which was really, really the granddaddy of all MMOs. Yes. These multi-user dungeons, and some of these things are still around. There were actually a ton of games in the 70s that you could consider an MMO. There was another one for the Play-Doh system called Moria, which I wonder where they got that idea. That was straight out of Tolkien. And in 78 at Essex University in the UK, they had a computer on the Marco 10. It was the DEC PDP 10, and this game was named MUD, Multi-User Dungeon. So they didn't get better on the bush. So, which I think is pretty cool. So in '89, Yehuda Simmons published a game called Avalon: The Legend Lives.
Yep.
And that is still online, apparently.
Sort of.
It wasn't the first MUD, but it basically was the big daddy of MUDs. I mean, this was like the one that really kicked it into high gear. If you think about it, 1989 for me doesn't seem that long ago, but it's hard to believe that the MMO scene, there was no existence of it up to the point, because I mean, we were still playing. I was still logging on to BBSs in '89.
Well,
so I mean,
technology, man. I
mean, it's weird. The timelines always strikes me as strange. So the first commercial MMO, okay?
Okay, that's more what I thought you were asking before.
All right, now get this, and I remember these. This was a game called The Island of Kesme. It was designed by Kelton Flynn and John Taylor, and it was a roguelike game. It was available at $85 for $12 an hour over CompuServe.
Woo!
Now, $12 an hour,
that'll cost you.
When I was doing this research, one thing I noticed is that if you want to get into the MMO scene back in the Dizzy, and I mean I don't mean playing it on the Play-Doh system in the 70s. Right. I'm talking in the 80s. Much like everything else that was online, you're going to pay. Yeah. Don't think you won't pay.
Yes.
Because CompuServe wasn't cheap per hour, period. So this is an additional cost, right? So get this. Here's another one. Lucasfilm had a game called Habitat. All right, it was an online role-playing game made by Lucasfilm Games, and this was available in '86 on the Quantum Link service, which was on the for the C64. I would wager people in this listening audience have played this game, and this game also was available on AOL apparently at some point. This also won one of the first awards given to an MMO. It won the first Penguin Award for innovative work. This was awarded years later. Now let me ask you if you've heard of this one. The first graphical MMORPG, Neverwinter Nights. This wasn't the Neverwinter Nights that we played on the PC years later.
The MMO that's out now.
This is the AOL version, which I remember hearing about this. And this one was much more contemporary. This came out in '91 and ran all the way to '97. And to play this, it cost $6 an hour to play this on AOL.
Well, the prices are coming down. They're coming down. Now it's only $6 an hour.
Can you imagine that much money was spent on this stuff? Because we know how people get when it comes to these sorts of things.
Oh my gosh. If you had a game as addictive to, say, like EverQuest or something, and they were paying an hourly rate, holy moly.
So, Air Warrior was an early multiplayer game where you could fly virtual fighter planes. It came out in '86 and was on Genie. This is like a trip down memory lane for these old services. There's another one, GE's multi-service game or service. So there was also a game called Shadow of Yerbus, and it was an MMO by the Sierra Network. This is incredible. I will say, as a sidebar here, in the old days, as the dial-up internet or whatever you want to call it was coming into fruition, there were a ton of these little services, weren't there?
Yep. I mean, remember Earthlink? Earthlink's still around today.
Earthlink was strictly to get you on the net, though. I mean, this is stuff. Yeah. These were their own networks. GE had their network, and there was a couple for the CC4. Then you had AOL, which really the internet wasn't a huge part of AOL early on.
Correct.
And CompuServe and all these crazy things. We were on some of these. I mean, I wasn't on Quantum Link. But I was on Genie for a little while. I was on, of course, we were on CompuServe for a little while.
CompuServe and AOL.
I remember running up a guy's bill on CompuServe one time. Man, we were just downloading the crap out of stuff. Oh boy, that's a whole other story. Don't do that. that was mean. So let's keep going here. The first commercial text-based MMORPG to go from the internet to a proprietary network provider, in this case CompuServe, or to the internet from CompuServe, was the Legends of Future Past game, which I've not heard of that one.
I haven't either.
Now here we're going into a more modern era here. So who came up with the term MMORPG? Keep in mind, these games were basically called online MUDs, whatnot. Where do you think the term, who do you think came up with this? You would know who this guy is.
Lord British?
You're right.
Yeah.
Richard Garriott, the creator of Ultima Online, in 1997, he coined the term MMORPG. It says here the term probably derives from the term MMOG that can be traced back to 1995 when Dale Adink used it to describe a game called Confirmed Kill. Another online game that came out right around the same time from Sierra Online, The Realm Online. You ever heard of that one?
Maybe.
Then we had in 96, in Korea, Nexus, The Kingdom of the Winds. Now, we've both heard of the Nexus series.
Yep.
This was a huge game in Korea, and it's still online right now, along with, I believe it had a sequel as well. There's a game called, now check this out. Here's what I'd totally forgotten about. In 96, Meridian 59
I've never played
by 3DO. I'd heard of it, and it was one of the first big internet games that got magazine coverage. And it had another one. It was one of the first ones that had a flat monthly fee as opposed to an hourly fee. Well, I mean,
hey, again, the prices are coming down.
God only knows what the flat. I wonder what the actual hourly or the flat fee would have been. $400 a month or whatever.
Oh.
So there's a game called Tibia by Kipsoft that was launched in 97. And see, at this point, the race is on. Ultima Online. The alpha testing began in January of 96, and it was released in 97.
And that's when the game changed.
Well, it did, because that's the first big one, wasn't it? Including the infamous, impossible killing of Lord British in game.
Until they killed him.
Well, I mean, they did kill Lord British in the game, and I remember this made the news.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see this in real news.
Yeah.
But this world was quite popular because it was so different. This was the one that really probably did, in fact, set the stage for modern MMOs.
It helped. Yeah, I agree.
I think
the next one coming up is what did it all.
To round out the market here, you had between 96 and 98, you had a slew of games, and you had including NCSoft, which we're going to talk about. You had Lineage 2.
Huge game.
City of Heroes, Guild Wars, Exteel, Aeon. Those were all big games that actually...
Those are later down the line.
Yeah, Guild Wars 2 actually spawned the sequel. And then EverQuest. Do you know when EverQuest launched? You want to take a guess at this? I was surprised it was this late.
98, wasn't it?
It was March of 99.
99, okay.
Now, we played the heck out of EverQuest. And EverQuest sort of put the nail in the coffin. I mean, I don't know. I think Ultima Online may still be up. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if it's down or not.
No, I don't think it. Not official servers. EverQuest still runs official servers.
Yeah, I know it does. In '99, you had a game that I remember being a big deal at the time called Asheron's Call.
Yep.
And these were called the Big Three games: Ultima Online, EverQuest, and Asheron's Call. And then that's pretty much where I stopped, because then you're getting to the modern era. But just some notes on some dates when stuff was released you might have heard of. In 2001, you had Dark Age of Camelot and Anarchy Online released. In 2003, you had Lineage 2, Eve Online, Star Wars Galaxies, and Tale in the Desert, which I believe you played, Brent.
We're going to talk about that one.
And then in 2005, you had WoW. You had EQ2, City of Heroes. You had City of Villains. You had Guild Wars and the Matrix Online. Remember that one?
Yep.
And then you had in 2006, Dungeons and Dragons Online came out. It's still going. And in 2007, Myst. And remember, and Lord of the Rings came out. So
it's still going.
So you had a lot of there was a lot of action there, and it's neat to think this stuff traces back to the multi-user dungeons. You know, my buddy, the Chud, which I occasionally mention on the show, he got into the MUDs hot and heavy. He played a MUD called Vampire Wars. This would have been right around, and it was in the, it would have been the mid '90s when he was hot and heavy into this thing. And of course, this was all text based, and Chad was a real worker. I remember he gave his guy a name that was like 30 characters long, and it was random characters, and he did that. So because when you went to attack someone in the game, you had to type attack and then their name.
Yeah.
And no one could type his name in quick enough to attack him. They had to change the game because of him. He also loved those MUDs so much that he pulled his bed right up beside the computer. He was the first person I knew that did that. So he was addicted to these things fully and completely for the longest time. They were very addictive things, and they were very popular right up until, and we're even slightly past when the more modern games came out. And some people play these things to this day, and there are still plenty of MUDs around. So MUDs really were the early predecessors of the MMO.
Yeah, yeah. And before we get into our feature games, a few games I want to hit on, and just their impact not only on the market but on myself. EverQuest, when it launched, I was not there. I was in the beta, but not there opening day, and then came in a few months later. Its faction system, where you had races that were evil and races that were good, and evil races couldn't go to good places, and good places couldn't go to evil places. That set up a very real dynamic that had been in previous games, but in this kind of setting, really made the world feel like it was more alive, because you had these NPCs that hated other NPCs, that's kind of a new thing.
It would kill them.
Yeah. I saw many people fail out of college because of EverQuest.
Yeah, EverQuest was a time sink.
It was an addictive thing.
It's something else to consider about a game like EQ. Since you hadn't played anything like it before, it was not just playing a game. I mean, this was a new way of thinking about playing, and it became your life. I mean,
yes.
Many a morning I remember sitting in this inn, waiting for this guy to come. Everyone would sit around and they would shout trades for different items or prices, like a store. And I would just sit in this inn and lay in bed and watch the prices go by until I saw something I wanted, and I'd jump up real quick and that's. But I remember doing it for months, months doing that.
Another one I wanted to touch on that it's not one of our feature games is A Tale in the Desert. You mentioned it earlier. It was a very small, the user base on it never got above 5,000 users. But it was, and I hate to use this term because it's so frowned upon now, but it was actually a social experiment for the people who made it. It's an MMO like no other. It's a crafting MMO. There's no combat in it. It's all about social interaction. But what made it very interesting was, as you played, you could make laws in the game. The society as a whole could make laws, and the devs would actually go in and code that into the game. And there were times where you could basically elect a pharaoh, and that pharaoh could exile people from the game. And when I mean exile, I mean your account got deleted. You had to make a new account, a new character, a new everything. Now, obviously, in a that would be lawsuit city, in a more broad, like a World of Warcraft type scenario. But it was an extraordinarily interesting game. It's got a rich history, and I almost picked it for this week because of some of the stuff that it had going on in it. I just did not think it had the mass appeal.
Is it still around?
It is still running. The original owners are no longer a part of it, unfortunately, but it does still run. If you've got a minute and you can find a history of A Tale in the Desert, Go read the wiki page. You'll be amazed at some of the stuff that happens in this game. It's really awesome.
I remember you playing it, and I had no idea what
my
was
gosh.
going on with it. I was like, man, what is this thing?
It was one of those games that I had to stop playing because it consumed so much of my time, and I knew it was unhealthy. So I stepped away from it. But it had some features that no other MMO ever had because it was a small-scale game. Do you have any MMO honorable mentions before we get into the meat of it?
My MMO career is actually kind of brief in a way. I mean, it was long stints with a couple games. I played as we determined, the game I played the most early on was EQ. I played it for years. I've told this story to my friends in public, but I don't know if I've ever told it on here. But I played it so much that I got to the point. I remember getting in my Jeep or my old Citation one day to go to the store, and at my old house, and I hopped out and I got in the store, and I thought I'd been playing this in this land called Karana. I think it was
North Carolina.
The deserty one, and I thought I saw a mountain lion in my bush. Because I'd been looking so intently for them when I was running across the desert, and I was like, "Geez, I think there's a lion over there." And I was thinking in game terms in the real world. Not good.
No, that's bad.
And so I thought to myself, yeah, this is probably. I remember thinking, okay. And the one thing about MMOs, you can advance online, or you can suck. But anyway it goes, you're trying hard to keep going. But at the end of the day, just like any game, really, you're not really, with the exception of the pleasure you get, it's empty hours. You're getting nothing accomplished in real life.
No, I don't agree with that.
What are you getting accomplished in real life?
I think there are social interactions in an MMO that can actually, you can learn other people's perspective from across the world while still having fun. I know I've met many friends, especially in A Tale in the Desert, that they would greet me, and we would have conversations. We would talk about what was going on our day outside of the game. It wasn't game life. And those were people for that time that I would have considered friends.
Well, I guess a better way to put it is I had stuff I could be doing that would help me in the real world, and I wasn't doing them. And I was spending too much time on EQ.
Just like
everything
else.
In moderation.
Exactly.
Right? So I kind of... and also, when the original expansion for EQ came out, it sort of nullified all the hard work I'd done, and it pissed me off. And that's pretty much the end. That's when I pretty much stopped playing EQ. Now, the other game that I played extensively was City of Heroes, which we'll talk about. I did play EQ2 quite a bit when it came out. I had a cup of coffee with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I had a cup of coffee with WoW. I've played a couple of things on and off, but those are the two big ones that I played. And I know you played both those quite a bit.
I've played almost all of them.
Yeah, so
I really have.
And Brent was more into that stuff than I was.
So without further ado,
let's
go to the meat and potatoes.
We picked a couple games from the MMO world. And now, unfortunately, because it's funny, we had some people asking me about kind of reviewing the games early so they could play along and even send in some reviews, which is great. So here's before we get into this, I wanted to mention this. Starting this coming week, we're going to release our games on Tuesday or Wednesday, I should say, on the Amigos Discord channel. So if you're one of the Patreons, you're going to have access to see what game we're playing early, and that way you can play along for a few days before we record on Sunday if you want to. Now, hilariously, we couldn't do that this week because these games are both unplayable right now.
Not true.
Go
ahead.
Well, they're not playable in a commercial sense. How about that? But starting next week. So if you're one of the Amigos Patreon folks, first of all, thank you, and secondly, you will have access to the game early if you want to play along. We've been having that happen on Amigos, and it's really enjoyable, and it adds to it a lot to get some reviews in. So
absolutely.
With that being said, we picked two games. We're going to let Brent lead the charge this week. Brent, tell us what you picked for your game.
I picked Star Wars Galaxies. Holy moly! What a franchise! When you think MMO and then you think Star Wars, you think this has to have made the most money of any game of all time.
When they announced this originally, I knew it was going to be the biggest MMO, and it was going to be the most popular one, and it was going to blow everything else away.
And you were wrong.
And this was, and keep in mind, this is before Disney came in and did whatever the hell they're doing to the Star Wars franchise right now. I mean, this was when Star Wars was still super duper mega popular, as opposed to just sort of mostly mega popular like it is now.
It's still mega popular.
It's
just because you don't enjoy it and I don't enjoy it.
Listen,
it's still ridiculously profitable.
Hold on, I didn't listen. The last movie lost money. A Star Wars movie that lost money. I want you to. Yes, it did. No, it did. You can shake your head, but you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it did. Shut up. Just do your thing. Now you're making me mad on the show.
So, Star Wars Galaxies, as you said a little bit earlier, released 2003. That's pretty far back. This was an MMO that when it was announced, it was supposed to be a WoW killer even before WoW existed, because WoW didn't come out until 2005. But this was supposed to be something when it hit the scene, it would literally set the internet on fire. They were afraid it was going to crash the internet because of how popular it was going to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the game, it never saw that popularity. At its peak, I think it was pulling in 350,000 subscribers is
really?
The numbers I was seeing.
That's its peak?
Yeah.
Holy smokes,
and,
that's low.
After the peak, I mean, of course, whenever you reach expansions, you have little bumps, but it never reached.
You mean
those
like
numbers.
Simultaneous users or total users?
No, total. At paying subscribers at one time.
I never knew it was that unpopular. That is incredibly low.
So, when we're talking about Star Wars Galaxies, most MMOs, you talk about expansions or you talk about the launch or stuff like that. I want to talk a little bit about how the game played, what made it special, but then expansions, all that kind of stuff, side notes. The big thing with Star Wars Galaxies were the two major patches it got, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on that. So, let's start back, 2003, the game releases. I was there, not on opening day, but real bloody close, because I was pumped at one thing this game did, and it did it better than anyone else still to this day. And that was to give you a sandbox, open world MMORPG. And what I mean by that is the world had its cities, and it had its NPCs, and it had its vendors for, your normal stuff. But most of the world was physically built by players. There were player housing, which led to player cities, which led to player-run total establishments where you could go, and you didn't go to the main cities for a lot of your stuff. Really, the only thing you went to the main cities for was travel to other planets. And even some of the huger player-made cities later in the game had those kind of spaceports. But this was a game where you physically added your structure, pre-made structure, to the map, and that became your home. Talk about classes. There were tons of things you could do in Star Wars Galaxies. Professions, 26 of them. And when I say professions, I don't mean like combat classes like wizard or sorcerer, they're kind of the same thing. I mean vastly distinct things you could do in the game.
They were wacky, even I knew about that.
You had your combat classes, your melee, your pistol, your rifles, that sort of thing. But then you also had architects or cooks, medics, entertainers. And all of this was used to flesh out this living, breathing world. There were people that would play the game and would never go out and kill anything. Their entire existence was living in a cantina, dancing, interacting with the community, and what that did was give combat classes huge, powerful buffs. When you got hurt or you got certain ailments or you needed, you were getting ready to go into a big fight, you would go to medics in the game that were actually players that would buff your character with medicine and shots and steroids and drugs. When you were out in the field and you needed quick pick-me-ups, you had player-made food. And the way all of this happened was the players didn't just go to this bush and pick the berries off, or kill this and harvest the skins off of it. The way it worked in Star Wars Galaxies, where you surveyed the land with different equipment and found like mineral reserves, and then you would set up your extractors physically on the land. So the best places couldn't be occupied by more than one person. And to make it fair, and this was brilliant and unheard of at the time, the resources of these things would deplete and then show up somewhere else in the world. So you couldn't just stay in one place. You would have to gather wind, right? You would set up your wind farm and you'd generate a bunch of wind power, and then the winds would shift, like the seasons would change. So you'd have to take down all your equipment, find the new place, build it all back up, and start collecting again. It gave non-combat people something to do. The combat in this game was over the top complicated. There were 3 bars that was basically your health, your mind, and your stamina. And you had attacks that would attack different bars. So you could knock someone out by draining all their mind power, or by lowering their stamina. And it made it complicated because there was also some shots, some things you could only do while you were kneeling, some things you could only do while you were prone, some things you could only do when someone wasn't facing you, that kind of affair. It was very, very, very complicated, but it was also rewarding, but it was not balanced. And before I go any farther, do not think that this game was some kind of super MMO. It had a lot of problems. It had a lot of bugs. It had a lot of featureless buildings that were, static. The missions all came from terminals. There was no overarching storyline. It was always go here, kill this many things. Things that in modern terms are just junk missions that you don't really see, or you try not to see in MMOs anymore.
It had a rep for outside for being buggy and boring, and also for having big stretches of nothingness. I remember that was another thing. You could go forever and you wouldn't see anything.
And that is all very true. That is 100% true.
Like desert, basically, like Tatooine, basically. It's a big empty nothing. It wasn't enough there.
Well, and like I said, when I say sandbox, this was true sandbox.
Yeah, it was sand.
If the player base did not put something on the map, there was nothing on the map.
One would assume these vast expanses of nothingness were built with the assumption that more than the amount of people that showed up would show up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It makes sense now when you hear you talk about this. I understand.
So when the game first launched, it also didn't have space combat.
Yes, I remember that.
It's because it released early.
Yeah.
The Sony and Lucas at the time pushed it out the door because it needed to be. They thought it needed to be on the market at this time, or it was going to lose its buzz.
It was really tough to even get off a planet, wasn't it? I don't remember reading a whole lot of. I mean, you could go to a different planet, but it wasn't.
No, you just bought a ticket for the most part. But the first expansion came out. It added the space combat, and that was by far the best thing that this game ever did as an expansion ways. From this point on, holy moly, it's turmoil time. What's a good MMO without a little bit of controversy? So in 2005, it is determined that 350,000 subscribers is not nearly enough.
Not nearly enough.
And this was about the same time that WoW released, and it said 1.5 million, and we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And this made the Lucas people angry because in their mind, they had the most popular property on the planet.
Yes, they were right.
And if you can't bring in at least 1 million subscribers, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So Sony panicked, and they said, this game And at this point, the game had been established. It had been out for a couple years. The player base that was there was very solid. It didn't have this wavering that a lot of MMOs have. It was a very solid base because what people had invested into the game, which took hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours of time, they were proud of. And they wanted to upkeep it because everything deteriorates in the game, and they wanted to upkeep it and make sure it was around so everyone could see what they've done. So on April 27th, 2005, the first big change comes to the game, and it is known as the CU, the Combat Upgrade. And what this did was took the horribly overcomplicated but very intricate combat system in the game and scrapped it. And they went with a more traditional, when your health runs out, everything attacks your health. When your health runs out, you die. Everything else is just used to produce the neat things that you can do. And what that did was it made all of the buffs, all the food that you ate, the medics buffs, the dancers, all of that suddenly became less important. So, and then the people who were in the combat, the things that they were really powerful and worked really hard to obtain was now middle of the road at best, some of it complete junk. So you've actually went and hurt more classes than just the combat classes. You've hurt a huge, huge section of the gaming population. And they said, ride it out, try it out, you're going to like it. Okay? Beautiful thing. Well, they lost a lot of players because of it.
They didn't like it.
The players that did stick around, they adjusted. And in my opinion, although I did not like the combat upgrade because of how it was implemented, I 100% agree something had to be done to streamline combat because it was a mess. It was poorly thought out of from the beginning.
It makes it hard for someone new to come in too.
Well,
that complicated.
Yes, I agree.
And that was probably a big chunk of their reasoning.
So when all this was happening, in the background, the other thing that was happening were, why are there not Jedis in our Star Wars game?
Yeah, I remember hearing that too. It was something
And
else.
there were a lot of complicated, convoluted ideas of how people can become Jedi that the devs were toying with. But all of them were deemed too difficult by Lucas, and other people too, higher ups in Sony. So they said, we're going to make it so you have to do 3 professions, but we're not going to tell them master 3 professions, but we're not going to tell you what those professions are. So if you do that, then you can unlock your Jedi stuff. Well, that was even too much because people didn't know. So they started dropping hints. Holocron cubes that when you used it, it would tell you one profession that you had to master to unlock your Jedi powers. Well, once that became to light, it wasn't... Jedis were a myth that they were in the game, to there are a handful, and to now there are hundreds.
Yes,
and,
I remember as this was going on.
And this was at a time when Jedis, the super mega powerful, as you know, they kind of should be. And it really shook up the game. So, but it was still at least, when you saw a Jedi running around, in the beginning it was like, oh my gosh, Jedi, oh, it's impressive. And at the end they're just annoying because they're just slaughtering everybody. Yeah. So the next phase in their plan is they're leaking users. They haven't hit the 1 million mark. Now the Jedis are super powerful and they're kind of starting to take over the place. It totally changes the dynamic of the game. Something had to be done, and something done it was. And thank
you, Yoda. Something done it was.
And that was the new game experience. This was a patch that it did not alter the games like a combat thing did. This was an absolute new game that they shoved down everyone's throats. Instead of having dozens of professions that you could choose from. You had 9, and you just chose it at the beginning of the game. Now you could just click on Jedi and you were a Jedi. But being a Jedi didn't mean anything anymore because they were so nerfed because they had to fit to be as powerful as everyone else. This was the beginning of the end for this game.
I remember hearing about the day this dropped. In fact, I remember you complained. I believe you were a big fan of me cooking.
I was.
And your class went away.
In my early days, I was a cook, dancer, rifleman.
What?
That's right.
This is a problem right there. Those are the stupidest combination of gaming.
Cook, dancer, rifleman. That was my classes.
I'd love to see footage of that show when you were doing it.
And I was actually on my way to earning Jedi, and then the new game experience. And they did not test this externally. They did not let people know. They let people know it was coming 2 weeks before the change, and then bam, it dropped and it changed everything.
One thing it changed was a mass exodus.
Everything.
I don't remember that.
The game actually lasted. And just when I say new game experience, it was literally everything about the game was changed. How the combat worked, how your powers worked, how you chose classes, how you farmed, how you crafted. Literally, everything in the game was changed. Before, when you crafted, you could actually make individual items that were totally unique to you, that only you could make, with powers and stats that only you could provide your customer. After the New Game Plus, it was only... You could only make stock items, so everyone was making the same thing. So even those people that stuck around through the combat change, who reworked all their shops and stuff like that, they were, and you would go, you was like, yeah, this guy's the guy you go to if you want to buy your best blasters. I mean, that was what he was known as, the best blaster guy. So you would go to his city and you would buy stuff from his shop. And this changed all of that. The combat changed. Even the looks of the games changed. It was the interface, the GUI. It was a drastic, massive change, and the player base hated it.
Yes.
Hated it. And it was, the developers were all like, oh, you're going to love it when you get used to it. This is all about bringing in the new players.
They don't know anything about this at their base when they say stuff like that.
And that's the problem. They never even talk to their base. Their community manager, when the combat upgrade hit, he fussed. He said, this is going to cause problems. I don't think you've tested this enough. This isn't what the player base is looking for. But in the end, he kind of lamented and said, you know what? He went to the community and said, guys, this is going to happen whether we want it to or not. Let's just kind of roll with the punches here. When the new experience, blah, 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 new game enhancements released, the community manager said, this will not stand. I will not go and promote this. This is not what the community wants. And he was fired for it. But I will have to say, and he wasn't a volunteer, he was paid. And he was fired for it. I'll have to give that guy credit. I wish I knew his name. He stood up for the community to a degree that I've never seen before in a game. It was really impressive.
He probably saw the writing on the wall anyway. It's like, well, I might as well get fired.
That's very true.
This thing's going down. Was that Robin on the bat phone there?
So on that aspect of it, he was exactly right, because the game started hemorrhaging people. Here's what's crazy, though. The game stuck around for 4 more years.
Limped along.
4 more years. Released a lot of compilation. You had bundles with all of their products on it, just to get back on the shelf, try to get people interested. But the end was there. One last thing to note on this is the game was so loved in its pre-combat update state that people have reversed engineered the game and there are Star Wars Galaxies server emulators that you can log on to right now. If you own the base game, you can just install it, run a few patches, and log into and replay that time you missed. The emulators are still being updated. I think the last update when I looked was like 3 days ago. It shows how much the community... Well, first of all, it shows that the game had a community. Because you can't pull that kind of people together to make something like this without having a strong community. And it really shows the dedication of these fans who got completely screwed by the company that were trying to produce a product for them. I know you didn't spend a lot of time in Star Wars Galaxies.
I had a cup of coffee.
I was in it for pretty much the beginning up to the new enhancements, the new game plus, however you want to call it. And that was it for me. I quit very quickly after. But I'll have to say, as for crafting, as for impact to the world, I don't think any game hit as hard or as well as Star Wars Galaxies.
I know you're a big crafting nut.
I am, yeah.
Well, I'll summarize my comments quickly. The Star Wars property and certainly was and may still be one of the most valuable properties on Earth. It's a botched job. It was a botched job, and World of Warcraft proved that the people are out there, they want to play. And you've got a lot more fans of Star Wars than you do World of Warcraft, but they had a lot more faith in World of Warcraft than they did Star Wars. It was a botched job. There's no long short. I think Sony they had too many things going on.
I think it launched too early.
Yeah.
And it launched with way too many bugs.
When you launch without space stuff for the Star Wars game, you've botched the job.
No, I agree.
And as an added bonus, and we'll talk about it's interesting compare and contrast between your game and my game is the thing that makes MMO sort of fascinating to talk about is the fact that they are the only games that can really evolve.
Yes.
And they evolve through content provided by the maker of the game. And they can evolve or they can de-evolve. They can make improvements or they can make changes that aren't popular. And what you're looking at with Galaxies is a game where they to make it more popular, more accessible, which is what they should have had in the first place. They de-evolved the game for people that have been playing.
Yeah.
So basically what you're doing is you're undermining your core audience.
Yep.
And when you do that, as we both know, in gaming, you rarely do you get a second chance. There aren't a lot of games where you hear about, they released a patch and suddenly it got popular. Usually, if you screw up early, and we'll talk about the new Fallout as an example, it got a horrible rep with the community before the launch. Then the launch came where they got caught in lies and it was buggy. It was a disaster. And they're never getting it back. I mean, their numbers, it was a complete bomb. So a perfect example. So
there is a famous quote that I'll end with. I'm not going to do it verbatim, but a Sony executive said, "Players don't want what we have. Players want kill, loot, repeat. Kill, loot, repeat. They want to be Han Solo. They want to be Luke Skywalker. They don't want to be Moisture Farmer Ben." Well, the thing he didn't realize is the community that had been built with Star Wars did want to be Moisture Farmer Ben because that is what they were given. That's what they accepted the game was, and then they came and took that away from them.
I believe he was certainly sort of right. The problem is they discovered this after they'd already launched the game. And so by that time, when you amass 300,000 users for a Star Wars game, you're getting some hardcore MMO people, but you're not getting little Billy, the kid that watched Star Wars and wants to be Skywalker.
That's right. That's right.
And that was too late. They botched the job. So, very interesting, Brent. We're going to move along to my choice this week. I chose as my game, and I've mentioned earlier, City of Heroes. City of Heroes was developed by Cryptic Studios and published by NC Soft. It was out for Windows, and it launched April 27th, 2004 in the U.S. and in the Europe, February 4th, 2005. And unfortunately was put to bed November 30th, 2012. So it had a little over 8-year run. So the backstory of City of Heroes is actually kind of interesting, and I didn't know any of this until I started doing some research. So you had a guy named Michael Lewis who was a big Dungeons and Dragons fan when he was a kid, and he had a degree in computer system engineering, and he ran a chip company in the 90s. All right, that ended up getting bought by Broadcom. Okay, Broadcom, of course, huge for $60 million. He walked away with like about $20 million. So he was like, "What do I do with this money?" And he was approached by a buddy of his named Rick Dockin with the idea of having put together an online game, and they decided on superheroes because they knew that the medieval stuff, basically the fantasy stuff, had been done to death. Yeah. So they also bumped into a former Atari engineer, Bruce Rogers, who was creating his own graphics engine. They got him on board. Then they added another guy named Jack Emmett, and this guy was teaching at Ohio State, but he eventually became the lead developer on the MMO. And so out of this team, they came up with Cryptic Studios, and they didn't want to pay money for an IP, which is why this superhero game doesn't have a Marvel or DC license. They decided to go with the original content because it occurred to them that pretty much you can make your own superheroes up, you know, and they were right.
People have done it for years.
So, in 2001, they officially unveiled City of Heroes, and the funny thing is, Doc and the guy that came up to the guy to make the game, they were behind schedule. And he was the lead. He was one of the lead developers. So they fired him. But the funny thing is, they put him to work. He was the guy that ended up running the COH comic book.
Huh?
So they sort of fired him from development and moved him over there. At E2003, they had the game on display at E3, and it won Best Online Game that year. So it was off to a good start. Beta testing began in January 2004, and I was in the beta, and you were in the beta.
You were in earlier,
and I mean straight out of the gate. And I will say, from being in a beta, and I've been in a few betas from back and forth, including DDO, Dungeons & Dragons Online. This beta was very polished beta. I mean, it was in good shape early on.
And this is back when betas were actually
that's
betas.
That's right. I mean, you could play right out of the gate. You had superpowers. You could run around. It felt. I mean, I was like, man, this is going to be a winner, and it looked great, you know, as well. At the time, the way Cryptic sold this game was just like you would sell any other game. You paid $50 or so to get the box, and then you would pay a fee. At the time, it was $15 a month to play. And when it got released, it had over 100,000 subscribers within 2 weeks. So it was off to a good start. Again, this isn't the Star Wars property we're talking about here, so you don't have to expect those huge numbers. One thing City of Heroes sort of coined, and I don't know, I think they were the first ones I really heard doing this like the way they did it. It was when they would release an update. Like when I played EQ, they would update EQ occasionally, and it was an update. In City of Heroes, they would bundle these updates into a big thing called an issue, like comic book issues. And the first issue, was launched early, a couple weeks after the game released. And eventually, they'd go on to release 26 issues, which was kind of cool. And so this thing released, like I said, in April or March or April 2004. By September, they already were up to issue 2. And introduce stuff like badges and patches, which are basically things you can just go running around the world and just pick up by going to certain places or doing certain achievements in game, like vanquishing X amount of foes and stuff like that. So the game was well received. Just to summarize the game, I'm not going to get deeply into what the game is, but basically, you start off with you start off on a good foot, because in this game, the first thing you come up with is your character creation. You have a certain number of archetypes, which would increase as the game went on.
Yes.
They would add power sets, basically, and you'd pick your power set, and then within these 2 power sets, you would pick your powers, and this was all choices for the player. You can mix and match a lot of these archetypes however you wanted, and then once you picked your initial powers up, you would make your guy. The character creation for this thing was out of this world. It's still top tier. Everything's copied it. And it's you would just go through and make your costume up, adjust your guy's sex, height, what he looked like, and they added to these generators as the years went on. I mean, they extrapolated on it to the point at the end where your guy could have these crazy glowing auras. You could change the color of the auras. You could change the color of your powers. You could change what the powers graphics looked like. It was very intricate. Now, you could spend as little time or as much time on these as you want. There was a randomize button that would just give you this random guy. Sometimes they were pretty cool. You know, I've used the randomizer more than once, probably almost every time I ever used it. But it was a tremendous way to start. You knew right away. You're like, holy smokes, this is out of this world.
It was so diversified. No two characters would look the same unless they wanted to look. They purposely did it to look the same. It was pretty amazing.
Right, and so once you did this, you would pick one of two starting points in the game, and you would start off. And then, as a level 1 guy, you would still have 2 or 3 powers. You'd have punch, and you could have 2 powers. And you would just go around beating up bad guys who were trying to steal people's purses or break into buildings or cars. In this, and you would get experience points for vanquishing these foes. And in COH, no one really got killed per se. You just when you knocked out a guy, they would basically get beamed to the jail. That was the gimmick. And so you would. So it was actually sort of a. I mean, it was a violent game, but it was not what I would say. You could justify it to yourself if you were a pacifist, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you can hit someone with a flamethrower and then say, "Hi, you're arrested," so you might be stretching the truth there just a little bit. But I understand what you're saying.
So the game got off to a great start. And by summer 2004, Cryptic was already working on City of Villains, which would be a separate game that would tie into this game. We'll get to that in a moment. Unfortunately, November 2004, Marvel sued Cryptic and NCSoft because they had noticed that you could basically make their characters in the game. Yeah. And this began kind of a wacky era where they were at odds, and Marvel, it really didn't go anywhere. The lawsuit ended without a court case, and they settled legally in 2005. Now, so what the changes were to the game was, if they caught you, there was a time where I had a guy named that looked just like Hulk Hogan, all right, for example, and I think he was called Hulk Hogan or some facsimile. And one day I got on, and Hulk Hogan was just turning this blank guy. And his name had been scrambled because if they caught you ripping off somebody, they would come in and they would mess up your guy. The funny thing is, this actually, in some ways, the Marvel suit actually helped the game. Because there was a time early on where you would see 30 Batmans running around. Or
Wolverine 50 was the big
Wolverines.
One. Yeah.
And so it forced you to think outside the box, which wasn't a problem for us, but for a lot of people it was. And really, I don't remember anyone being mad that they couldn't play as Batman. I mean, really, that sort of went away. Well, because you could play as Batman, you just couldn't look exactly like him and call yourself Batman.
The reason why the lawsuit never went anywhere was when they got to court and they said, look at all these characters. Like, this looks exactly like the Hulk. This looks exactly like Wolverine. This looks exactly, and like the Thing, all these characters. Cryptic was like, yeah, but you made all those people. Our user base didn't make those people. You made those people. And they were right. And Marvel was like, duh. And the judge was like, if you're doing
Well, it actually didn't go to court.
Well, right. No, it got settled. Yeah. Because it was obvious that Marvel wasn't going to win.
Well, the long story short is I think COH did enough to curb their annoyance.
Well, the major sticking point, though, was that the player base wasn't doing this nearly as much as Marvel was making their own characters in the game.
Yeah. But, I mean, it could be done quite easily. You could make a load of guys. And really, even after they nerfed it a little bit, you could still do it. So, that basically came and went. It was no big deal. The game added enhancement, which was interesting. You could put these little enhancements, coins
in your powers,
and you could make them do certain things that were different. Like I had a guy that had a power called Lift. He could lift a guy straight up in the air with his mind, and if you put enough certain tokens in it, he could lift a guy from farther away. Excuse me, or he could
throw him way higher,
do more damage. Yeah, and if you were way overpowered, you could throw guys up like as high as like a 20-story building. It was real funny. the game kept on rolling. 2005, they released City of Villains, which was a separate game that lets you play as bad guys. Everyone had wanted this, and they released it. It added a whole new section to the world. And this world was diverse. It had tons and tons of different parts of the city you could go to, and this added more. And in this, you were villains. You made your own villains. It added more costume stuff. It actually added stuff to both sides. And eventually, what ended up happening was they sold that as a standalone for a while. Then they sold them as a combined pack for a while. And then eventually, everyone just sort of got City of Villains towards the end because it had been around for so long. But it was another very popular option. And I know we scooped it up and we really liked it.
Absolutely.
And it was well received and people really liked it. So in 2007, NCSoft bought Cryptic's half of ownership in the game, and that would basically change the franchise to a certain degree. And so Cryptic handed over the reins to City of Heroes North Cal, which they ended up changing their name because their name was so stupid. But so basically, there were 15 people that were working on the MMO after 2007, and that had been around for a long time. And so you've got a change of ownership here to a certain degree. But what the important thing is, NCSoft now was a controlling owner of City of Heroes. That's the important note there. So the smaller studio did way more than Cryptic did.
Way more.
They went bananas. They enhanced the game like you wouldn't believe. And this is the exact opposite of Star Wars Galaxies. Over the next couple years, you saw stuff like arenas where the heroes could have combat. You saw auction house where people were buying and selling special equipment and enhancements. You saw the incredible adventure story editor where you could go in, the architect, where you could go in and literally make up stories for other heroes to go through. That other people could run.
It was remarkable.
That blew us away. I mean, you're making in-game content. It was actually quite brilliant.
It was. You took the set pieces that already existed in the game, but you added your own dialogue and you set it up your own way. You physically placed things on the map.
Yep.
And you could tell your own story through it. It was amazing.
And that came out in 2009. And this is right after North Cal changed their name to Paragon Studios.
Yes.
So, because North Cal was not a great name. In August 2010, they released another expansion called Going Rogue. And this was a really interesting expansion that lets you sort of play one of those tweener characters that's sort of good and sort of bad, like a Deadpool maybe, something like that.
And you can make your bad characters good and your good characters bad.
You can bring your bad guys in and run these complicated story arc and turn them into good guys and vice versa. Because as a villain, if you went to certain parts of the city, you were instantly attacked. You know,
you just couldn't go there for most intents and purposes. But being a vigilante where you could go everywhere was sort of the thing. That's what a lot of people wanted to do, and this really allowed you to do it.
So that was released in 2010. Now, the one thing about the Sea of Hero subscriber base was it was a very consistent subscriber base, but it had whittled away over the years. So it was decided in 2011 to take COH free-to-play. Now, I remember when this happened, we were all quite concerned, weren't we? Because free-to-play was pretty new, and there hadn't been too many games that did it. But what you got for free was actually incredible. A lot of stuff, really, for free.
The way it worked was the longer you had been subscribed to the game, which we were been subscribed for a very, very long time, the more of the pay free stuff you would get.
Right. So they were rewarding your
loyalty.
Patronage, yeah.
So for us, when the game went free to play, we just didn't have to pay a monthly fee anymore because we were there for so long. We got everything unlocked for free.
Now the funny thing is, eventually I went back to the pay model just because I like the added benefits that you got. But you know, this game, to put it in perspective, because I sort of just touched loosely on the gameplay on this. You'll get to have a ton of heroes. I think it's like 15 heroes. Yeah. You've got access to all these different lands. By the time you get the level up in the high 30s, you're talking a guy that has several dozen powers, unique powers too. I'm not just saying like here's a blue laser, here's a red laser. I mean, they did different stuff. So you're talking a massive amount of powers. Something else that has to be mentioned here, just talk about the gameplay, was the physics engine in this, which was bragged off physics.
Yes.
Those were the best. I've never seen a game use them quite like COH. Because
they were so good.
You would hit a guy, they would wing around and their legs and arms flailing. We used to love to do this thing called railing kills, where we would shoot guys and try to knock them over railings. Some guys would crotch themselves on railings. Some guys would fall 4 or 5 stories and crotch themselves, fall head first. They would fly back in the walls and splat. It was the best. And that system was a big part of the allure. I mean, no one did combat. No one's done it, and I haven't played many modern ones, but up to the point where I've played, no one had done anything like this combat-wise. It was real-time combat that was all. It wasn't like Final Fight or something, but it was like it was really happening in front of you. Everyone was seeing things at the same time. It was glorious. And when you had a big battle going on with a bunch of guys, it was mass chaos on a grand scale. Yeah. It was really quite remarkable. And you would have events where you would have 60 people or more get to come in and fight one big, huge creature. Hamadon was this big amorphous blob that you would fight. You had to bring in everyone would have to come together. Yeah. Which I should mention also, another thing City of Heroes had was just a lot of all the MMOs I played, it was the one with the most nice, friendly people, helpful.
Absolutely.
They would help you level. They would give you stuff because you were heroes. And I think that gave people a sensibility that they didn't get in a lot of games. They weren't out there trying to. There was very little bad behavior. People were quite nice, and people would single you out if you were a bad behavior, and you would be ostracized to a certain degree. I read an article where a psychologist, had taken it upon himself to do a case study on COH by being the biggest jerk character he could be. And his report was, I did all this evil stuff, and these guys all ostracized me. They all hated me, you know. And he thought, all these violent jerks. I thought to myself, I read his thing. I was like, no, you're clearly an idiot. Yeah. You acted like a jerk, and so everyone treated you like garbage. You know?
Another thing with City Heroes, the role playing in the game was off the charts. You would have. I remember very vividly one character who would always stand around the payphones at the game and do an emote like it looked like he was on the phone, and he would have these hilarious conversations where you only heard one side of them, but they would go on for like 20 minutes. They were pre-written routines that he had, and people would gather around this guy, listen to his whole spiel. And like I'm saying, you're out, there's tons of stuff to do, but you're all gathered around this one guy. Listen to this hilarious conversation he's having. And stuff like that built the community. Another thing that City Heroes did was had costume contests. Not officially run, just fans would have costume contests, and everyone would line up. And they would have judges, and they would give out prizes. And
they'd give out good stuff. Yeah. Lots of enhancements and credits.
And this is literally the only other MMO besides Star Wars Galaxies that also had a very deep-rooted community, where these people came together and made the game more than what it was, because it was just a lot of like-minded people.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here all day and go into the different things that they added to the game over the years that made it fun. Super bases. You had superhero groups. A lot of the groups would run those contests. You know.
Yeah.
There was radio stations devoted to COH that were ran off server. There was, of course, message bases. The message base was by far one of the most active I've ever been on. It was a huge community of players, and everything was going well. And the free-to-play was a raging success. In fact, it was talked about as the model for the future of how to do this. This is how you want to do your free-to-play right here, because it turned their profits up to. They were still. Keep in mind, this game had been around for a while. They were making $12 million a year, money. They weren't losing money. They were making money.
They were making the money,
and their fan base had went up. You know, they'd went up. So you can imagine how surprised everyone was on August 30th or 31st, 2012, when the news from NCSoft that they were going to shut down the game.
So mad.
How baffled were you? We literally didn't believe it until they shut off the lights. I was like, wow, they're really going to do it, because you're effectively giving away millions of dollars and people that wanted to play the game. But it's funny how things go. So NCSoft was an outfit, as we mentioned them earlier, out of Korea. And they had a couple big properties in Korea, including the Lineage series. They also did the what was the other one they did? Guild Wars was another one of theirs that was a very popular unit, and they had decided that they were going to switch direction. And what that meant, they didn't think they were making so much money on Lineage.
Yes.
And they had some other properties coming out that they weren't going to mess with City of Heroes, which wasn't popular in Korea, although it was some places overseas that got it.
But it was
not popular in Korea. They didn't deem it popular enough to keep going. And so what happened was a series of deals that were trying to be made up because NCSoft was caught with their pants down. They had no idea it was coming. And NCSoft tried to buy City of Heroes. Now, the word on the street is that the negotiations went back and forth, and literally the lead designer said that the deal was probably going to happen, and there was literally one signature short of NCSoft purchasing the rights of City of Heroes.
Yeah, you mean Paragon
Studios. And what happened was they didn't get it. And so, sure enough, the thing shut down.
Something I want to mention about this, and this is not uncommon for Korean or Asian-based studios. They have a thing where, and this is true with all companies, but especially true with Asian-based companies, when they have a property that they feel that they're the owners of, they take great pride in it, even if it's nothing, even if it doesn't exist anymore. So, a lot of people were saying that even though the money was there, I mean, they were making money if they would have kept running it. They would have made money if they would have sold it. They were worried that in someone else's hands, even though they had nothing to do with it besides being the publisher of it, they were worried if it was in someone else's hands, it would go bad, and then that badness would reflect back on NCSoft.
It doesn't surprise me what you're saying. So with the deal done, the players lost their minds, and so they really band together, and even up to the point where for the last month or so, they had a continual, nonstop torchlight vigil in the steps of the main headquarters in COX the whole time, and there are plenty of pictures of it up there, and they would have gatherings of hundreds and hundreds of guys. I mean, it's an infinite sea of heroes that would be showing up to protest. There were petitions. I signed all the petitions. I sent the emails. Everybody did. Didn't help. I mean, I think we all knew we were pretty much boned.
In City of Heroes, whenever you get too many people in one place, it spawns another instance of that place. So I think the limit was like 170 or so people. So what happened was, where Aaron was talking about was called Atlas City or Atlas Park. There were over 100 instances of Atlas Park because so many people were coming in to do this torchlight vigil.
Yeah, I was there. I'm sure you were there too for a bunch of it. Unfortunately, all the people at Paragon literally they were just like shown the door, and they were working on an issue that would have seen the City of Heroes characters be able to go on missions to the moon.
Yes.
And so they literally were in the middle of the issue when it died. Such was the passion of the community that the community tried to band together to buy the game from NCSoft. They wouldn't sell it, and then the community got together and helped help basically give the developers some money because they were broke. I mean, literally, I mean, to eat. They needed money, so they donated money to the developers. I remember reading these on the forums where people were and it was quite a. I mean, they did a good job.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, again, this shows the community. The camaraderie between the community members and the developers at this time, which is unparalleled. Funds were set up, and the developers didn't want to take the money, and eventually they were, they had to because they were they were out of work. And a lot of these developers, some people donated thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and this is all Paragon did was this one game, so they didn't have anything other sticks on the fire. This was all so this studio shut down.
When these developers got back up on their feet, got new jobs and whatever, they actually invited these people. I mean, this was years down the line, but these people who donated a bunch of money, they started having conferences and bringing them back and having dinner with them. And it was a really this is years after the game shut down, and these people are still close-knit. It's crazy.
Yeah, so with it gone, it was Kickstarter time, and a sequel, a fan-made sequel, called City of Titans, raised almost $750,000 to fund the new MMO, which unfortunately, after all these years, is still in development. It's been now going on 6 years. And among there's a few other MMOs that are supposed to be like the spiritual successor of COH that are in the works. And everyone has the best intent. They're hard to make, and it's not something you can just go out and whip one out. I mean, it's tough.
And just to touch on this, City of Titans was trying to make a game in City Heroes image, which would just be an upgraded for the new the new times. It is still in development. Another game called I want to say City of Heroes.
Ship.
No, this was Heroes and Villains. Its goal is to make basically City Heroes again using their properties, and it is still ongoing. These are both. It's a smaller project, but it is still ongoing. And then there is a third effort to reverse engineer the game, much like Star Wars Galaxies did, to put their servers back online. In the works, that is still being worked on to this day. I've seen footage within the last month where they have gotten so close. You can go into the worlds, run around the environments. There are NPCs there now that you can interact with, but there's still no powers. There's still no fighting. The core of the game is still not there. But these fans, these hard, dedicated fans, are still pushing to bring the community of City Heroes and that feeling back.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the community still hang out on Facebook and stuff, so a lot of them haven't went away. So that's sort of the sad tale. I mean, there's also a thing called Paragon Chat where you can literally log into the City of Heroes world and run around, but you can't. There's no actual combat. You just sort of run around, so it's kind of fun. It was a great game. That's pretty much killed MMOs for me, but that's the price you pay. But while I was there, it was a great game that they did a good job keeping up. Speaking of keeping up, we're going to keep up our good run of quality titles.
When we starting that?
Right now, when we spin the wheel and make the deal. Brent,
all right.
Tell them what we've added this week.
We have added the most modern system to the wheel to date.
Yeah, I don't even care anymore. We're going to do whatever we want, and so we have decided to put the Dreamcast on there.
That is right, the Dreamcast.
Screw it, we're doing everything. It doesn't matter.
You know what? The wheel is so full of goodness, I don't even care.
All right.
Let's go with it.
I'm hoping for CDI, yo.
I'm not hoping for CDI. Oh, no.
What is it? What do we get?
That would be... Oh, we've been waiting. We've been daring. It's chat choice time, ladies and gentlemen.
Do we have anyone in the chat room,
We
Brent?
do have. We did not put everyone to sleep. There are a few people remaining.
All right. You in the chat. We're going to do this differently this time since we're live now. You people in the chat room right now, those of you who are awake, you can all shout out one system you'd like to see us do, and we're going to make the decision right here on the air. So... we're just going to take a minute to do it. Everyone in the chat room.
We already have one suggestion. The C64.
Okay. And why don't you read some of the names of who's in the chat room there just to give them some data.
We got some Pixels. We got Necronom. We've got Terry's in the chat. We got Duncan Styles, although I think he had to go. Paul Harrington. But Retro Man Cave came around. I don't know if he's still there or not. See, we're getting suggestions in.
All right, let's have some.
The Sam Coop, which I don't even know what that is. The Spectrum, Paul Harrington's suggestion. Oh my!
All right, we need a consensus. We need somebody to lobby one way or the other, so we can make our choice. And keep in mind that you can pick anything, even stuff we've covered. Feel free to. In fact, I think on our last chat choice, I think we went back and did Spectrum, didn't we, Brent, on the last one?
I think Paul's wanting a double dose of Spectrum goodness.
That'd be a triple dose, triple dog dose of the Specky. So, I will say I'm glad that came up now while we're live. It's a lot easier to make a decision. So we're gonna give this a few more seconds. What is winning the race here so far, Brent?
Just single choices, because you said we were going to choose from what everyone chose. So you changed the rules.
No, I want to see what the consensus is. It's chat choice. We're not going to pick. They're going to pick.
I don't know what the Sam is. The Sam Coop emulatable?
I've never even heard of that.
I have not either.
But that might make it good. Sam Coop. It sounds like a car to me. It's a computer. Is it from France?
British. The British 8-bit computer.
Well, if it's got an emulator, I think we have a winner. Bam!
Well,
let's do it.
Let's make sure. Okay. Well, that's it.
All right. So next week, we're going to be doing something. I swear to you, as God is my witness, I've never heard of the Sam Coop.
We're going to learn together.
So next week, we will be taking an in-depth look at the Sam Coop. Wow, I never thought I'd say those words. So, thanks for joining us. And until next week, all I can say to you is, Sam Coop!
Excelsior!
Excelsior?
Well, you know, City Heroes.
Oh, God. All right, let me get a refill. That went way long. So
it did. Holy moly.
You're chatty today. You're chatty.
These are games.
You went so far in depth in the Star Wars. No one's going to know what the hell you're talking about.
Passion, man.
We had such good numbers this week, and you know it's going to go down.
We mispronounced it. It's Sam Copay.
No, you mispronounced it. I knew exactly what it was, but I like to make you look dumb. All right, we're gonna
Sam Copay, like coup, as in like a Russian coup.
All right, I got my Dungeon Master notes here. Are you ready, sir? Bring up that Google Plus page. We're gonna go right into this.
Wait, you want me to do that and monitor chat, huh?
Yeah, right. That's right.
All right, hold on here.
Do it all.
I made this big so you could see it. Now I have to. Also, I need to check my message alls real quick.
All right.
Make sure no one's on fire or. Oh, that's actually much better.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Y'all ready for this?
It's funny to remember that people are out there. Screw this. Let's just go. I don't need to switch that. That's good enough. All right, you're okay. On my mark. You ready? Here we go.
Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Amigos. I'm John.
No, you're not.
I'm Aaron.
Well, sometimes.
And you are.
I'm not.
John.
I'm also not Boat.
Oh man, what's going on?
I'm the
here?
other B. I'm the Brent.
The Brent. Hey everyone, welcome to the Amigos this week. As you may or may not notice, the boat is on assignment to Ireland, Brent.
Across the pond.
That's
as they
correct.
say.
Now, I will tell you that the boat has been out there running around. He did send us a couple pictures from overseas. We'll take a look at here. A lot of the Amigos boys are over there at Amiga Ireland, as you can tell. That was the last 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Good time was had by all. If you caught any of our stream that Boat sent over, it was great. And Pixels was there working hard too.
Yes, extra hard because he had to put up with John.
That's true. And it's true. Now you can see but I told Boat, I said, you represent the Amigos, go over there and act in a professional manner. So of course the first thing he does is head out to the pub, and unfortunately things spiral downhill from there. I don't even know what to explain in this photo of a lot of our Amigos buddies all in weird non-ant masks. So I don't want to know, to be honest with you. So Brenda, what's it like to be back in the old studio here, being back on the Amigos? Now, the last time we had you subbing for Boat, it was the Jurassic Park episode, I believe.
Thankfully, you've brought me in for a much better game. I appreciate that.
I concur. Boat will be back next week, so you're going to be relegated to the B show yet again.
I like the B show. It's the B show. I'm glad that you finally accept that.
Well, that's the last part, acceptance. But again, if you want to see highlights of the trip to Ireland, tune in this week. There should be plenty of tidbits, interviews. Right now, if you want to check out the trivia segment that Boat did there, it is available. It was a good trivia segment. They did a good job capturing this on video. You get a good feel for this massive event. Well, I've already heard they're talking. It was so large. They're talking about switching venues next year. I think they said they doubled in attendance.
Well, that's all. Hey, hey, that is awesome.
And
that is awesome.
I know plenty of our Amigos buddies were there. A lot of the luminaries of the Amiga world were there, including Mr. Pleasance, the guys from the Retro Hour were there. Tons of big names, and it was a good time. It was handball all.
Just to sample that trivia. Yeah. I'm gonna hit you with a trivia question.
I don't know the answer.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Which Amiga system had both a SCSI and IDE interface?
Amiga 4000T.
That is correct, sir. That is correct.
Thank you.
That would actually stump some of the panel when asked on the trivia show.
I did catch some of this trivia, and I will admit, because I am
You heard that question?
No, I didn't hear that one. But I'm not the most technically minded trivialist on earth, but I did know a good chunk of those answers. I didn't even cheat. I didn't even look at the things.
They had some toughies. There were plenty. I was like, I don't even know what that is.
I will say, if you choose to watch the video or not, the clear trivia master of this event was a lady named Pixel Vixen, who crushed her two male buddies in trivia, and then went on to be in the crowd for the second trivia show and knew some of the answers that the guys didn't know on that one. So she was great. I think Bodie would talk to her, so that should be interesting.
That's awesome.
So let's move seamlessly, Brent, as we do, into Amiga news. I'm not even going to get out the gamble train this week. You're going to be the news donkey.
I'm going to be the Amiga news.
You are going to be the Amiga news. So what do we got here to start it off?
Well, let's start with Dreamcatcher. He fired up the old time machine and went back to the future. Not one, not two, but three.
It's funny this week because not only did Dreamcatcher do a story on Back to the Future 3, he also just in the past couple of days did one on Back to the Future 2.
Yeah.
So he actually they did two of the Back to the Futures. If you go and look at these, DK, of course, he's well known for his ability to just go in there and dig in everything. He has scene-by-scene things going on, comparisons, notes. It's really quite amazing what he did.
He does so much better, so much improved work over anything we ever produced.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me sad.
Really, this is the Dreamcatcher show featuring the Amigos.
That's right.
What you got next?
Good friends over at the Retro Hour.
We covered that one.
All right. How about the new collector's edition on digital download, Zero Sphere.
Yep, I have not tried this particular game, but I like the box.
That's an awesome box.
What do they got going on there? They've got little. What is all that stuff?
It's
pipes
zero.
and stuff.
It's Zero Sphere, man.
That's all you need to know?
That's it.
Now, this one here I want to talk about is they have basically converted Ultima 7 to play on the Amiga AGA/RTG. Now,
holy moly, that's amazing.
Well, here's the non-amazing part.
Oh.
You have to have the beefiest Amiga of all time to play this. So the majority.
Bust out your 4000T.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is, we had a 4000T.
I know.
So if you're a big Ultima fan, you want to play. I mean, it is nice that they did it. I think it's cool. But I mean, it's going to take a beefy system to kick that thing up.
We thank the Indie Retro News for that scoop.
Oh yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
for many more. Now this one here actually got played. Tell us about this one, Brenny.
This is the Worldwide Hunting from Golem Games. Cracked and released for the Amiga.
Got to crack them first.
Well, you know.
Now this is like one of these shooting games.
Yeah, look, it's you're the hunter out there trying to get the big buck, or out on the savannah getting the lions. Sort of a multi-worldwide affair.
I believe one of our contributors actually have a video of this up on the Amiga's channel. So if you want to see some people shooting animals, now there's a lot of hunting that goes on in these parts. Have you ever been hunting?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
And how'd that go?
I walked around the woods for a couple hours and then came home.
Did you have a gun or a bow and arrow, a sling?
I did not carry a firearm. I was young at the time.
You didn't carry a firearm?
No,
How is that considered hunting?
I went hunting with others.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Did they catch anything?
No, we didn't even see anything.
And what's your general opinion of hunting? Philosophically and ethically.
For West Virginia, it is actually a necessity.
Yeah, it
to
is.
thin out, especially the deer population. We are so suited to support deer in this area that they overpopulate and will either die of starvation or start making their way inlands, getting onto our roadways and into our cities. And it becomes quite the nuisance and the problem.
I will say that this year in West Virginia was very wet, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the deer population blew up.
Exploded.
And so, and when this happens, I remember delivering pizza out some of these old creeks and stuff and seeing literal herds of deer,
Yes.
that would number to the hundreds.
Yes.
These massive herds.
I have seen one of those
Bizarre.
myself. It is crazy.
It is.
When you, and it's not something you can really picture in your mind when you're standing face to face, or I was in a car, of course, and hundreds of little deer eyes look into your headlights and have that little glow.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, look, I'm dead. I'm going to get killed by deer of all things.
Hitting deer in West Virginia, I've hit one dead deer, and then I've had one deer jump out of the woods and run into the car. I've had that happen. And I can't tell you the number of times I've had to stop quickly because one or two or more deer were coming out. I've had deer on my porch on Mud Mountain.
Yes.
And deer, I could literally have opened my front door with a gun and sat in my easy chair and picked deer off the hillside and wild turkeys.
And you lived in a city.
And I lived in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I was up on the hill in the city. But So it was deer are plentiful here. But I've never been hunting, and I could not shoot anything. Not that I don't like guns. So I'm a bad West Virginian.
Now, from a worldwide hunting, as the game's perspective, I don't think trophy hunting is a suitable or ethical thing. I don't think going out in a pinned area, or basically a artificially pinned area, to shoot something that is otherwise not an issue, that's not my bag. But in a worldwide hunting games scenario, I love it. I love these type of games.
Yeah, I will say I'm not going to agree with you on trophy hunting. I was at the Goodwill the other day and picked up 3 old bowling trophies. Man, it was great. I'm hunting them down. That's pretty much the extent of my. Well, what? That's not good enough.
Start running. You're now the game.
Oh man, I am the most dangerous game.
Yeah.
What you got next?
Let's see here.
We got to talk about. I think is this Boat? Yes.
Yes.
Boat's Elite series continued this week, and Boat played his initial game of Elite. We're gonna be covering Elite on a show upcoming.
Sure.
And so Boat, he was horrible at it. It was so funny to watch him. And then he got better. And then he went to play Elite Dangerous and he couldn't play, so he ended up playing more Elite. So he's played a bunch of Elite. So if you want to see Bo play some Elite, there you go. Plenty of video of him playing it and trying to learn it. I've got to get my button gear. I've played very little of it in the past couple of weeks because of my busy schedule, but thankfully I played some in the past, so hopefully I haven't gotten too rusty on it.
Next, it looks like we've got some papercraft.
Did you just say that was papercraft?
No,
I was
actually,
abbreviating.
I'm very impressed by this little model they got of the Amiga 500.
Stuff, don't you?
I find that the art of papercraft is most intriguing.
I know, clearly. I'm looking up on my shelf here, and you've got a bunch of cardboard craft that you put together, or craft, if you will.
Wow. So you can follow that link and make your own, it appears.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it looks good, too. It looks dead on.
Next, something from Indie Retro News. Looks like the Star Wars-inspired shooter gets a 3D update for the Amiga.
Yeah. Now, I saw a video of this. I've got this on the system, but I haven't got to play it yet. It's called Stardust Wars. Now, it's a nutty-looking shooter. I can't quite wrap my head around this particular one, but it looks great. I mean, it looks tremendously good. I was real impressed the way it looks, so I'm looking forward to giving that one a shot. But it's available for download, man, so you can go grab it. And we'll come back to that one, Brand, I guess.
If you can't get enough Amiga and you want some Amiga CD32 goodness, you can hit up the latest ARG episode 50, where we take a look at Flink and Microcosm.
Out now. Watch it now. Now, I will say, Brent, you know, the funny thing about this episode is we have put together... did you know, by the way, that last week was our 50th episode of ARG?
Nope.
It was. That was our 50th episode. We didn't mark it. We didn't mention it. And I had no idea, but that's 50. Now, Bo did about 20, I think, before you took over. So you have. I know there was a tipping point where you had passed him. To mark that episode, we didn't do it on purpose, but ARG
the wheel
Presents 50 was Amiga CD32. Now, the first thing I saw when this went up was someone said AVG, or AGAVN.
The Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah, sent me. That's what he said.
Well, what he meant by that.
Well, I know. I mean,
okay.
Or got me here. And I thought, because I've seen that before, and I thought to myself, that is something I never thought I would see on anything I ever posted on YouTube. And lo and behold, up to this point, now it's not our most popular episode of all times, but it's certainly out of the gate, far and away, the most looks we've ever had on any of our shows. And I'm assuming it's because we're part of the Amiga network. But I have to say, we've played a lot of Amiga games. I hadn't played either one of those, and Flink was a very impressive game.
Yeah, very good.
And really, of course, I'm not just saying it because the Lionheart guys were behind it. But
no, it was a good game.
It was great, and with a few minor foibles or screw-ups. I mean, I think it's a shame that it's so... I've not heard anyone hardly ever talk about Flink.
Yeah,
so that one came out of nowhere, as far as I'm concerned.
Something else to mention on that, one of the comments saying that Akira was probably the worst game that they ever played, since I said that Microcosm was the worst game I'd ever experienced.
You were nuts,
it caused me physical pain as I played it.
I kind of like that part of it.
I actually watched a guy stream Akira to its finale.
Oh, man.
Took him 7 hours,
oh, man.
But he went in cold and beat the whole game.
I bet that guy was sick as a dog when he finished that. Have you ever seen Akira the film?
Oh, yes. But Macaw45 is the streamer. If anyone wants to go check him out, he does a lot of retro gaming stuff. And I'm not plugging him. He's way bigger than we'll ever be. But, yeah, watched him struggle through the whole thing. It was amazing.
I remember seeing those comics in the comic book store back in the day. And, of course, the anime came out for Akira. What a brain scramble that one is.
Yes.
And that's a lot of par for the course for a lot of those crazy animes from back in the day.
Next up on the news, go and watch the trivia contest. It is posted.
Yeah.
We gave you a little bit of a taste earlier. See how many you can get right. I recommend pausing the video if it's moving a little quick for you, because some of the times to answer, I found myself thinking before I got a chance to see it. But yeah, great. It's also fun to watch the people on stage. you could tell it's right on the tip of their tongue, and they're just wanting to answer. They can't get there.
And I thought Bo did a great job
Excellent
emceeing it. And
job.
I can tell you that the night before Bo left, he called me up, and he was nervous about doing
sure.
that. You know, of course, it's a big deal. You're going all the way to Ireland, and you're in a place where you don't hardly know anybody. And luckily, all of our Amigos buddies and the boys in the Retro Hour all were real. They took care of Bo over there, and we saw all kinds of great pictures. I'm sure Bo will put something up on everythingamiga.com to document his trip.
Excellent, yeah.
But it was quite a tale. Me and several of I sat Friday night with myself, and I know Huck was in there, a few other people, and we were just all, or Graham was in there, and we were all just angry and upset that we didn't get to go. And the weather's been horrible everywhere else in the world. Some people they're baking down in Australia, New Zealand, and we're freezing everywhere else. Yeah. So it was crummy, but I'm glad they had a good time.
Yeah, but thumbs up, Bo. You did an excellent job. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching it.
I thought so too. Who'd have thunk it?
Dreamcatcher, more Dreamcatcher, as if we knew we weren't going to talk about them just once. Put up an article about Terminator 2.
Now the Amigaverse, this is interesting, and I have to say I really loved this movie when it came out. This is a great article, by the way. I read it the other day, and it's very well done, of course, DK again. But there's some insights into what makes a game fail in a lot of ways. And it's just exactly what you would think it would be. It's inability to use certain aspects of the media. It's a rushed timetable. It's the fact that they know once they bought the license that they don't really have to care what the game's like. And so they don't have to wait for the game to get good.
Very true.
Which was Ocean's MO a lot of times, and US Gold as well, and some of these other companies. There are plenty of people that are like that.
Shove it out the door and make the quick buck.
And even the people making them, they realize it's like, hey, I was not able to fulfill my full potential here because of the timetable, the amount of time I had, the amount of things I had to work with. It's very good. It's more in depth than you'd think in terms of that sort of thing. I love that. So it was really interesting.
And really, last on the news involving the game we're going to talk about today. Is a art comparison.
This was an article I came across when I was doing research for this game, and I would myself talk about it now, so I linked it because it's a really interesting article. It talks about the fellow that actually did the art for the game, and he actually to get the art, to take the picture for the cover of this, to paint it, he went out and he needed some models. So of course he had no money, so. Right. He got his wife, his former wife, to be the girl holding the candelabra, and then he found another programmer who was a LARPer basically that had the outfit to be the guy pulling the torch on the wall.
There you go.
And then he went to the gym because I guess he was in San Diego, and he said, "Listen," he went to the reception and said, "Listen, I need a muscly, long-haired guy to pose for some pictures."
And 30 of them walked out.
And then she went. He said she went in the back. She picked a guy out, brought him up. They paid the guy. He came to the house, and he was the warrior on the front. It even shows how they had him because in the cover art, he's sort of falling backwards, and they had him sitting on this little bench or in pose, and it's got the photos he took of all three of them, the actual photos, so you can see. And it's pretty amusing. But the one thing that keeps coming up is that people wonder why that the programmer had that outfit. And he had a thief's outfit sitting around the house.
Are you kidding?
Who don't, right? Who don't have one
Why
of those?
do I have an outfit for Meatloaf?
Well,
Eddie from Rocky Horror.
That's a valid point. So I thought that was an interesting article. I was like, I'm going to share this thing. It's too good not to talk. We don't go into that much cover art really either. One shows. And some of these are quite remarkable. The amount of interesting stories that come behind it, and also the incredible artists that do these things. I mean,
yes.
These are guys that are very renowned often or did album covers and whatnot. So, with the news out of the way, before we get on to the main event, let's get a few of the particulars taken care of.
All right.
Let's talk about the Amigo Aaron Weight Loss Challenge.
All right.
I am Amigo Aaron.
It's true.
When I came up with the Amigo Aaron Weight Loss Wager, see, I mispronounced my own thing, and I got on boat last week for doing it. I thought, what a hilarious gimmick this will be to raise some money, right?
Right. Sounds good.
And it seemed like a brilliant plan. And then, now that we've started, it occurs to me that I probably should lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to pay out the yin-yang.
Often when making a wager, it's good to do the wager.
Yeah. Now, and it has been a chore to get this thing going. But I am off and away. And I'm going to, and here's the jet of it, folks, for those of you that just tuned in or haven't heard. I've got to lose 100 pounds by July, or I've got to pay $5 a pound to charity for every pound I come up short. And that could be upwards of $500 plus. And if I gain some weight,
and you don't have $500.
I don't have that much. So I better get. I'm going to chop off an arm before this thing. What could happen? So, but what we're
oh man, oh no! I just had the weigh-in vision of you naked on the scale with a towel. No,
yes,
no,
it's just like UFC, no. Man. Me and Ronda Rousey are there.
Oh no!
So here's how you fit in the picture, gentle listener. If you would like to support the Children's Miracle Network, which is the charity we're going for, all money donated goes 100% to the Children's Network. Heck, I don't need it. I'm not buying no food.
That's it.
You know, so what am I going to do with it?
Think all the money you're going to save.
So please send in donations. I believe I think the address for this is amigos@amigos.com, and on the subject line put Aaron's weight loss wager, and you can sponsor me per pound.
Yeah.
And I'll put a graphic at the bottom of the screen to make sure I got the email right. You can give us $10 or $10 a pound. That'd be great. You can give us a dime a pound, $1 a pound.
Sure.
And then when we do the Amigos marathon for charity, the Amigathon in July, those pledges will come due, and that's when you'll end up paying the money. We'll get all that stuff. We'll go to charity to give us a good bump to start the thing off. So
I mean, it's good encouragement for Aaron, and it's a good cause for the charity, Children's Miracle Network. Excellent cause.
It's funny. I never really thought of this as a challenge for me. It never occurred to me that no, I'm seriously, because I mean, you know, my weight sort of fluctuates anyway. I never really think about it, but I guess it's sort of motivating. It is now because I'm cheap.
Yeah.
And so it appealed to my sense of cheapness. But you can go to everythingamiga.com for more details. And we would appreciate the support. And again, it goes to a good cause.
Absolutely.
The Children's Miracle Network. We raised a couple grand for them last year during the Amigathon. You know, while you're on here, before we get to the main event, speaking of the Amigathon, that was a 24-hour event.
Yes.
And one thing that I put up this week, which we didn't actually talk about, was I have just listed hour 12, I believe it was, of the Amigathon. And I've got hours to go all the way to 20. We lost the last 4, which were what I would call the bad hours. What did you think about the prospect of a 24-hour Amigathon? And we've talked about whether we're going to do another one that long, but I think we probably will. And you were there for a good chunk of it.
I was there for just over half.
That's a good chunk.
The thing with 24-hour marathons, it's not that I wholeheartedly believe that we can fill the content. I don't think that that's an issue.
Well, the users
filled it, right? That's what I'm saying.
Should we call them users? Well, probably not. This is like Tron. We call the contributors or our well-wishers. How about that? I like that one.
The pledgers.
The pledgers.
The thing with a 24-hour marathon is, can you stay entertaining for 24 hours?
I can't stay entertained for 24 seconds.
Well,
that's the problem.
So, and while it is funny to see, you know, sleep-deprived idiots sitting on a couch, it's only funny for so long in my mind. So, I think a 12-hour marathon that is action-packed from beginning to end is a more preferred method, but you know, I'm not a part of that. If we do an ARG marathon, that's what we're doing.
Screw that.
No, we're doing it.
Now, I'll tell you.
Oh, spin the wheel every hour. Oh, that would be so awesome.
Oh Lord, what are you doing to me? Don't even start that.
Hey, fans, hit us up.
No.
ARG presents.
Listen, what about I'm not the marathon man.
Yes, that would be so awesome.
If you've ever seen a movie called Americathon, which I recommend. It's a movie where these guys go continuously doing a marathon to raise money because America's broke and the Indians are going to foreclose on our land if we don't pay them back the money we borrowed. And I believe it's Harvey Korman is the host. I believe it's who it was. And so as his hosting duties, he has to stay up for 18 kabillion hours. So they're perpetually wheeling him in pills and drugs. That's what we needed, like cocaine, meth, whatever it took to keep us going for these 24 hours. And I will tell you, if you watch the Amigathon, I've been watching quite a bit as I edit them. you can look in the background and see just beat down suckers. I mean, just beat down. It's usually like Chad or you or Bo. It'll be like laying back there in his crazy hair. You know, just beat down. And as I will say, it's a shame that the last 4 hours got lost because they were pretty funny. And because I'm sure it'd be funny to watch because it was much like Star Wars Galaxies we talked about earlier. It was a quick descent as we fell apart. And that last hour when it was time for the pie. You've never seen a more pathetic I felt so bad for Bo that it was not even fun. And his pie, I might add, was the lamest. I mean, it was like he got like a little whipped cream on his nose, whereas I got covered head to toe in super death. Again,
that's what, like I said, can you stay entertaining for 24 hours?
Well,
now see, if we ARG, we have people donate, and at the most whoever donated the most, they get pie pieces of their choice, spin it every hour.
Oh God. Listen.
We'll talk after.
Don't
try
to pull the B show into the A
show. We'll talk after the show. We got it.
With all that in mind, we're going to go for it. And so, the game of the week, as chosen by the highly thought of Amiga Game Selection Committee.
Yeah, patrons like me.
These guys went to work, and in 1 week, they decided to have us play Dungeon Master.
Oh, holy now, moly, good. Oh,
let's talk about dungeon mastering for a moment.
Yes.
I'm an old school D&D player from way back, and I have dungeon mastered many a year. And I remember back in my early days of dungeon mastering, I would make these dungeons that were incredibly mazy. I would get my graph paper. I would sit down and I would mark these things out. And I'd be like, this is going to screw them. I'll put pits here. I'll put all these traps down. I'm going to have a serpentine hallway here. It's just going to be crazy time, right? And when I was desperate for mappage for this game, just to jump ahead, and I grabbed some of the maps because I was not going to map this thing. I tried to start, but the maps got too intricate. These maps for this game, it reminds me of my early days of dungeon mastering, where you would intentionally try to confuse and screw over the player with the most diabolical mapping possible.
Yes.
That was the premise we walked into Dungeon Master. This was like a real evil Dungeon Master that wasn't make you work for your money. It wasn't going to give you any breaks, and it was going to make it a hard roll for you. I had not played this for many years, and when I did play it before, I remember getting frustrated and quit because it was so freaking difficult to get through. Now, had you ever played this one before this week?
I have played Dungeon Masters. In fact...
Really? I did not know that, eh?
Oh, yes. I enjoy these type of games. This one is a little... It lacks some of the quality of life features that I've come to expect with my overexposure to modern games.
Yes.
I will fully admit that.
You can never go back. It's hard to go back on some of these.
Yeah, the lack of a built-in map feature. I mean, you can get a compass, but that compass ain't doing it.
You're right.
Compass ain't doing it.
So, just to get the particulars out of the way, Dungeon Master released in '92 from an outfit called FTL Software.
Yeah.
Published by Psygnosis.
Of course.
They're everywhere, That would explain the difficulty. One-player game. You had your French, German, and English provided. You can pick. It's ran on the ECS OCS. It was easy as pie. You could run on Kickstarter 1.2, or up. It was not a difficult game to run. And what you've got here is a first-person Dungeons & Dragons style dungeon crawl. Now, this was basically one of the two earliest versions of this sort of gaming.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to our old buddy. It's good that you're here for this. Our old buddy, the Coco, the TRS-80 card computer, had a game called Dungeons of Dargoth, which sort of pioneered this view and this sort of gameplay, although on a much more rudimentary level. Thank you. But this game took what that did and clearly upped it to the nines. This is quite a game in terms of the presentation. Now, this was actually originally released on the Atari ST in '87, so several years before the Amiga got
way
it.
back, yeah.
And I will tell you, the Atari ST version of this sold 40,000 copies right out of the gate.
Woo!
That's the number that's being copied and pasted around the net, and was the largest selling ST game of all time, of all the time.
Yeah. Well, 40 grand out of the gate will get you there.
And in fact, the penetration into the ST community was enormous. This was this was a game that was on, like, I think it was like 30 or 40% of all STs had this game. If you think about what was going on in '87 and this game comes out, this is quite a game. If you consider the Dungeons & Dragons came out like probably '82 or something like that, so you're talking a scanty few years, and the difference is unbelievable.
Yeah.
What is this game? And we should mention that there was also a DOS port, and amazingly, Brent, there was a Super Nintendo port of this, which I found interesting. And eventually, there was sort of the sequel or some kind of hybrid version of this appeared on the PC Engine CD platform as well.
Huh.
So I will say I checked out the PC version of this as well, and actually played it for a little while. And it is very similar. It's crappier sound.
Right.
But I mean, these games really in the ST version looked very similar as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're eerily similar in the.
Well,
now I did not try the. Did you ever play the Super Nintendo version of this?
I do not recall playing it because this isn't something I would play on a Super Nintendo. For me, a game like this, you have to have a mouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally.
Oh no, you could get away with it. I guess you could play with the stick, but I would.
Oh my God, no! I wouldn't want to.
Well, I would rather have a mouse on my Grand
Yeah,
so,
this is a mouse game.
So,
for me.
What is this game? Well, it's your classic first-person dungeon crawl. If you've ever played a game like, say, Eye of the Beholder, comes to mind. Very similar game. Or the game we did Black Crypt a month or so ago, and it's another very, very similar game. You have you play basically a whole party of characters. 4 characters, and you advance the dungeon and you're looking from the eyes of presumably the lead character, the lead 2 characters, and you can use your keyboard or there are on-screen buttons that will take you forward, backwards, left, right, and turns. So it's all basically you're moving one square at a time.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So every time you move one, the screen updates and you're forward one. But it's a pretty smooth transition. And I thought it was a pretty well done. There was no problem. I mean, it wasn't like, this isn't going to win smoothest game of all time award, but I mean, you got to remember when it was made. You pick, when you start this game, you pick from you go into this basically a museum or a hall of fame, basically, where you pick from a character set, I believe it was like 24 guys.
There's a lot.
You're allowed to pick 4 heroes, and then when you pick them, you get the choice of resurrecting them, or you can bring them back exactly as they were, or you can basically bring them back, reincarnate them. At that point, you can change their name. You can also you'll get a small bump in your stats, and you can basically have like an original character. So what they've basically done here is they've given you a bunch of different archetype Dungeons & Dragons style characters.
Yes.
And they've given a lot of variants and a lot
crazy races.
And so, but I mean, 24 is in future games, what would you do at the beginning? You would roll up a character, and what this basically did was said, listen, this is like if you've ever sat around and played, let's play a game of D&D. Go grab my book full of pre-gens, pre-generated characters where you don't feel like sitting around rolling these guys up, and you go pick one. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
I don't got a problem with it.
Nope.
I'm sure a lot of people want to roll a character up from scratch, which is okay, but I liked how this works. I thought there was no problem. Now, I will say you wander around here, and you can easily miss guys and whatnot, because I mean, I could have made it a little bit easier to find all the guys. But I mean, you wander around.
I like how they did it, actually. And the thing is you're not restricted by classes in this game. I mean, some stats work with some classes better, but everyone can be anything they want.
Right. And you've got a lot of freedom as to how you advance them. So once you've picked your 4 characters, you have they will appear at the top of the screen with their stats. Okay. They've got there are 3 bars at the top. That's the health, stamina, and mana bars. All right, pretty standard stuff now.
Yep.
This game was a trendsetter. You've also got a picture of basically like your marching order to the side, and then you've got on the far right, you've got buttons for putting together spells. You've got buttons for attacking with whatever weapons you've got handy. It's going to show you what's in hand. And then you've got 6 squares that are basically directional buttons if you want to use the mouse instead of the instead of the keyboard. Now, it's funny because I actually used the mouse. I did not actually. I did the same thing in Black Crypt. I don't know why, but because it's quicker to use the keyboard. You can go through a lot faster.
Quicker, yeah.
You know, for me, I kind of like using that interface.
I use the mouse the entire time.
Yeah, at the top of the screen, you've got whatever 4 characters you selected. You can click on them, and you can get their particulars. And they have sort of D&D style statistics. You know, it tells you there. This game, I will say, there's more to the surface. There's more on this game than what you see on the surface. There's a lot of math going on behind the scenes. You've got this thing is calculating your encumbrance. It's taking account your how much endurance you've got left and when you need to rest. It's taking into account how hungry you characters are. You have to eat in this game.
Eat and drink.
And you have to drink water in this game, and you have to have some downtime for your character. So clearly, the guys that put this together had played them a whole mess of D&D. I mean, this is as close to a D&D experience as you would probably ever have hoped for when this came out. I can't imagine.
Blow your mind at the time.
Right.
I mean, it blows your mind now, to be completely honest.
So what ensues, and now I will preface this by saying I did not get super far into the game.
Oh, I think we.
Well, I mean, I think there's 14 levels, and I got to the 3rd level.
Yeah, I think we experienced.
But I did go back and watch some of what was going to happen in the future to see what they had lined out. The game has some interesting. For the most part, this game is pretty straightforward. All right, and how it works. But there are some interesting things in it that I think are. It's funny, as being a D&D player, you get a certain insight into some of this stuff.
Sure.
And I'm going to go in the spells. When you've got a character that needs to cast a spell, you'll click on them, and then you've got a spell box on the right-hand side of the screen with runes in it. And so the way spells work in this is you have to combine certain runes to generate the spell. And again, back to that math, you can't just go ahead and get a spell going right away. Like, for example, I learned how to do the light spell pretty early on. Well, the first couple of times you tried it doesn't work, and so you have to do it a bunch of times, over and over and over, for them to get experience enough to where they can do it more regularly, and it doesn't always work. And so you're sitting there and of course every time you try it, you're also expending your mana, and so I think this rune configuration for the game is sort of the game's way of implementing in D&D what we call spell components, where you in D&D to do certain spells, you'll have to have components. You may need a feather or a pinch of dirt or scales or something. And so since that wasn't really something they were going to implement this, they did something where you could actually go and plus you're going to find some of this stuff out as you get stuff. You're going to guess some of it, and you're eventually going to understand that all these runes have. I mean, I don't know this from experience. I just know this from reading about it. Is that there are certain runes that are for like flying effects and damage effects, and sometimes you can even sort of guess what the spells are going to be, and try to sort of make them up as you go.
Trial and error, yeah.
Now, is this spell system when you're in a pinch? Is it the best? It's not.
Well, no. Let's see. That's by design. I guarantee it. They don't want you to be able to go fireball, fireball, fireball.
Well, yeah.
You have to type in your runes, and it's like from a tabletop perspective. It takes into effect your hand movements and your chanting and how things take time. Yeah. I think it's very brilliant.
Well, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it can be, for a neophyte who was trying to learn the game, what it did for me was it took my spell casting out of the mix early on. Like, I didn't do a whole lot of because I didn't know what I was doing. And it took me a long time to even understand what was happening.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with it either. I mean, but I'm just saying, I think this was their attempt to simulate the experience of spellcasting in Dungeons & Dragons, a tabletop game, and I think it's pretty close.
Yes.
Now, in 2019, just like everything else, D&D has become more video game-like than it was back in the early days, where, I mean, spellcasting, I mean, it was a lot to it. Now it's just like you're whipping stuff out left and right, like a video game character. And tabletop gaming has changed from back in those days. But this is something that's sort of a throwback. And so it was, like I said, it was interesting, and it was a unique way of doing it. I kind of dug it, but I was not good at it. I can safely say that. So as you travel through the dungeon, especially like I'll just talk about the first couple levels I saw. In the first level, you are basically just picking your character and picking a few things up, and eventually you'll come to a staircase. There are no enemies on the first level, and you're going to go down the stairs. It's the second level. The second level introduces you to some rudimentary traps and secret areas. Much like Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeon Master has plenty of nasty traps. And I looked at some in the later levels. I was just like, holy smokes. You've got pit traps. You've got all sorts of floor switches and whatnot, and it makes for a real D&D-like experience. If you're in a real nasty, like traps, you would not normally find, or puzzles, you wouldn't find in this amount, and so smashed. I mean, there's tons of puzzle elements in this. Now, in fact, I would go so far as to say this is almost a puzzle game as much as it is an attack-type based game. I mean, you're doing a lot of switch stuff, puzzle solving, and pretty intricate stuff. I got to a point on, I believe, the second level where you went in this room with like 4 million floor switches and 2 doors you had to come across, and you had to go across these floor switches in the right patterns to when you got to the door, it would be open, the double door. And it was for me, it took me a long time. I know you said you zoomed through it, but
it's a 9-switch puzzle, so there's only so many variations, and I can see you doing this. And I can see you just running over the panels, and then eventually you get it right.
Right.
If you stop and you actually think about what switch is doing what, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. The game, we should mention how the inventory in this game works. This is, again, this is sort of like we talked about earlier in ARG. This is sort of an EverQuest-y style inventory. You have slots for your arms and legs and hands and even a mouth. On there and an eyeball, and what you do is when you come across new equipment, boots, armor, various accoutrements, jewelry, you can slide them into those slots, and you're wearing them.
Yeah.
Again, this wasn't done
for the time.
as far as I know before this. When you're one of the things that's on your inventory screen, it'll have your health and stamina and whatnot, and sometimes you need to eat, and so you'll drag like an apple or a corn cob or whatever, or a chunk of those mushroom guys you killed, and you'll drag it into the mouth, and the mouth will go like, and eat it up, and you'll see the stat go up. If you pick up a scroll you need to look at, you just drag it over the eyeball, and it'll read the scroll. Now, the scrolls threw me off at first because I thought these were sort of like magical scrolls, and I guess they were just like helpful hints or little sayings.
It's how to play the game.
It was driving me nuts. I thought there was something there I was missing on these things. Eventually, your characters will get good enough if you've got the right ones to do things like craft potions and whatnot. And one of the early things you can do is craft like health potions. And as you go up, you can craft better and better types of potions. There's a lot of locked door, go find the key type things. You've got to go hunting around trying to find the keys. We should mention combat. Now, when you come across, the first thing I fought when I played was a mummy. I opened the door, here comes a mummy. And I will say the first level is a good intro as to how you play the game for the rest of the game. It gives you the basics, and it's not super complicated. And so when this mummy comes rumbling out, you've got your, on the side of the screen, like I said, you've got your a little attack icons, and you can attack in different ways. Now, I'll tell you, I watched a guy play this, and he attacked in a radically different way that I thought, man, that's genius. Because I would lumber in like a doofus, and with my clubs or swords or whatever, and just melee with them. I didn't even try doing spells early on. What this guy would do, and I guess a lot of people do this, one of the options you've got is to throw.
Yeah.
And so people were picking up rocks and everything, and they would pepper the bad guys with the stuff as they backed up, and the guys would just kind of lumber forth. And by the time they get up there, they had peppered these guys with so many rocks that they would kill a couple. And then you just go hack them. That's a brilliant strategy. You wouldn't do that in D&D, but in this game it works. I don't know if is that the way you played the combat.
Well, it was kind of funny when I remembered that the throwing mechanic was in there. The very first thing I would do is have my guys in the back who normally can't do anything because they can't reach the bad guys.
Right. Well, I mean, they range stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have them throw clubs, and then I had my monk, or they call it a ninja in this game, in the front. he would always have a weapon, and the first thing he would do is throw the weapon and then go start beating it with his hands.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, you could throw armor at the bad guys. You could throw food at them. You could throw anything.
Which I didn't do any of that stuff, but
yeah.
And you can collect it once you knock them down. You can usually pick it up.
Yeah.
If you get killed in this game, and I had to read about this to find this out, you'll occasionally see these altars sort of like embedded in the wall. And if you pick up the remains of your buddy and take them there, it will bring them back.
Yep.
Which I had to do that a few times. Now, I'll freely admit, y'all, that I emulated this thing, and I solely on the basis of the amount of time I had. Plus, I knew I would have solid save states. This is a game where you can save the game, and you better save it early and often because as you go up, I mean, even like stuff as simple as a couple mummies or some of those mushroom guys, for example. They will hurt you badly. I mean, and you can inadvertently get killed over something you don't think's that tough. Now, a part of it's because I wasn't, armored up or whatever. Just, I wasn't good at it. But it was a hassle, and so I had to save quite a bit. And this game has a rep for being pretty difficult to play. So I mean, but you have to be meticulous. This is not an arcade game. I mean, you go through and you have to really think your way through.
That's very true. And really, it depends on who you take at the beginning. How your game is going to play out early on.
Who were some of your favorites?
I picked a fighter, a human fighter, and a monk to be my front two guys, and they both started out with armor. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty tough from the very get-go because I had at least chain level armor on two of my guys. So what I didn't do, and it would have cost me way later in the game, I never fought with my back guys. I never brought them to the front so they could learn some combat stuff. I always fought with my front guys in melee combat. But if you take someone who has armor and stuff in the very beginning, it makes you tougher in the very beginning of the game. Mm-hmm. If you take things like the lizard man, or if you take the dog, or a few other things. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know the dog.
They start with no armor, and they are weak.
Yeah, you've got to get these guys something on them quick. Yeah,
yes.
I noticed that some of the characters I had that didn't start with any armor, you get mauled. The game has no music, but you would think to yourself, bleh. But actually, having music is going to be kind of stupid because what it does have is some incredibly eerie
ambience.
Sound effects.
Yeah, it has good ambiance.
This again, I was always a big fan of Eye of the Beholder, and it had that similar. But it does it at least as well, if not better. You can hear stuff coming from which again, this is very D&D like. You can hear stuff coming or hear it milling around in a chamber near you, and it is disturbing and creepy, isn't it? I mean, they do a good job of ramping up the scare factor, if you will. And as you're going through some of these chambers, like the worst thing that can happen is, and that's happened to me a bunch of times until I learned the spell, is like when your torch goes out and it gets real dark. This is a game, not only is it going to require you to eat, not only is it going to require you to drink, but you've got to take care of a light source, just like in D&D. And so that's, like I said, the first thing I learned was a light spell, because if you don't have it, and you grind through all your torches, you're in the dark. Yeah, literally. And so then you're hearing that creepy stuff in the dark as you're walking around. You can easily fall in pits or stumble into stuff, and you can fall in a pit, and you go down a level, basically. Not good, And now, one thing I will say about this, to me, this made all four of your characters always stay together. Yeah. So you're not going to have your fighter fall down in a pit, and the other guys are standing there. They're all together. Everybody so they move as a unit, basically. Yeah. Now, I know in future years this would be corrected. They would make it, and you can move into it. I hate that. I like this is better for me.
I agree.
I don't like handling. I like handling one guy. If I've got to handle four guys, this is the way I like to do it.
Yes.
In a tight group where I've got access to all their abilities on one screen. I don't have to go hopping around. It made it a heck of a lot easier for me to do it. So I know some people would consider that a hindrance, but I actually consider that a boon. I don't like having more than one character. You feel the same way?
I do. And you still have to monitor all of their health. You have to monitor their food intake, their water. So in that sense, you're still working with four people. Mm-hmm. But in a control sense, you're really working with one guy that has 4 sets of skills.
Well, I mean, if you look at it that way, though, you're taking really zapping the fun out of it.
Well, but that's what it is. But that makes it, for me at least, it makes it easier to control. And there's still strategy elements of who you put up front. And does your front guy have armor? Does your back guy have magic and range and that kind of stuff? But for me, like you said, controlling it as a group makes it easier to keep track of. And it allows you to do things at a faster pace in the game that otherwise you'd have to have actual turn-based things where you physically stop all the action so you can go tell the other group what to do, and that's no fun. I don't like that.
Now, some of the issues I had with the game, I might as well touch on these while I'm thinking about it. Of course, this game, and it's an older game, but this is sort of something that happens in these sorts of games all the time. You're going to get very sick of the same sort of tile sets of graphics, and you're also better prepare yourself to be lost a lot, because the downfall with a tile set like this is that everything looks the same, and so now there are some areas that will break it up, but I mean for the most part it's a real bummer, and you get lost real easy. And this is a game that if you don't download the map, you're going to map. There is no mapping feature, and so you will have to map. There is no one going to get through this game without a map.
No,
it's a 0% chance. And get yourself a big old sheet of graph paper, big one, because these are some large maps. This ain't no. You're not going to whip through this game in an hour. I mean, you're going to be here for. This is a multi-day game.
Yeah.
They really packed in a lot of. Now, I mean, it's not a bad thing. And again, given the time frame this game was released.
Amazing.
It is quite an astounding feat, but in 2019, where we are now, you would not release a game without a mapping feature, especially a game like this. And what I would love to see is and I'm sure they've done it because this game is heavily modded and still around.
Yeah. It
would be nice to have a Doom style auto mapping feature where you just fill it in as you went. That would be pretty cool. But a map is a must. Something else, again, there's a lot to take care of, so it's easy to forget to drink or eat. One thing I noticed that the experienced players were doing, for example, when you come to a place that has water, these little fountains, you've only got a couple water skins there, and so what they would do is they would literally, every time you saw water, you would water your whole party all the way up and then fill the skin up too.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know when you were going to come back. Well, that sounds like a good idea, and it is sound strategy, but it's not fun to do that. Stuff like that isn't fun. Something else I didn't think was much fun was sit around trying to practice stuff, practice spells. I mean, you could sit there, and all the pros do it. They would just sit there and just spam that stuff over and over and over, trying to build up their abilities in that spell area, and it's not. That's the kind of stuff I don't enjoy. It's sort of like when we played EverQuest. And we wanted to get our swimming skill up. We would just jump in the water and then go get a sandwich for a while and watch that idiot half drown for a while, and then you would come back and your swimming skill would get maxed out or whatever. It works. It makes sense. It's a sensible system, but I don't find it an enjoyable system.
Now, see, I have to disagree with you a lot. Filling up all the water skins and stuff, I find that adds to the immersion. I think you're in a party of 4 people. You have to, manage their food and drink. And when you feel relief when you see those. And I enjoyed making sure everyone was hydrated and then filling up the water skins. I liked that. I personally had no problem with that. Practicing the spells over and over and over. If that's the way you want to play, fine.
Is that what you did?
I did not.
Okay.
No, I didn't do that. I learned.
I didn't either but after I watched some other guys do it, I was like, I better start doing this because clearly it makes a difference.
But I didn't want to play that way. I wanted to grow organically based off of what I was doing, and I really appreciate it. And it felt good when I was able to gain a level in something. I was like, yes, and like.
And getting a level in this, you really feel like you've done something.
Well, yeah,
there are no gimmies, and you do level up, and this is like in Dungeons and Dragons, which is another thing they brought over, and that was a perfectly acceptable way to do it. This is old school leveling. how much you kill, what you get.
It's based off of what you do. If
Right.
you kill the sword, you become a fighter. If you kill with your fist, you become a ninja or a monk. One thing I don't like about this involving the combat is there are 2 different ways to combat in the game. You can stand there and combat, hit your buttons, throw your objects, all that kind of stuff. And if the outcome of the fight goes in your favor, awesome. If not, you restart the game. Or you can do the more sensible, but for me, less fun, it takes me out of the moment, where you basically strike, move, then the monster has to come to you, you strike and move again. I don't like that.
That's how a lot of people play, and I will say I didn't do that either, and it cost me. I mean, this is a stick and move game.
That is a smarter way to play, but I wish it wasn't. I wish I was rewarded either with a defense buff that I stood my ground and sunk my feet in. I wish that it gave me some kind of a boon for doing that and playing that way. But I understand the times they didn't even, they probably didn't even think of strafing around and making the monsters come to you to hit it once and then move again. But that is not even the thing that annoyed me the most in the game. The absolute thing that annoyed me more than anything in this game was if you run into a wall, it hurts.
Yes, that was annoying.
What a dumb choice. Since your perspective in this game is that 3D perspective, sometimes you're just walking down a hallway and you think, I've got one more step before I need to turn or shift, but you don't, and you hit the wall and the front party takes damage. It's like, come on, guys. Make the noise like we ran into the wall, but don't actually hurt me. I thought that was really dumb. Really dumb. That really ticked me off.
Yeah, listen. I played in a time, my old DM used to make me take damage for everything. So a real hard DM will have you take a point of damage for doing stupid stuff like that. So I'm telling you, these guys they were playing hard, old school D&D like they did in the 70s. You weren't around, but I heard about this. I've seen it firsthand, and that explains that. Plus, it's also a slight penalty when you don't have a torch. That's a reason I always have a light source. You're right. I agree. The first thing I did was run the wall, because you can be whipping through here, and sometimes it's hard to judge distance.
Yes.
And you'll whack right into one, you take a hit point, and you're like, I feel like an idiot. And it does. That doesn't. I will say that. I'm not going to fight you on that one.
But overall, I really enjoyed this game. I mean, and I knew I would.
And if you look at some of the advanced levels on this that we didn't come anywhere near, I mean, there's some crazy stuff, epic battles, these huge rooms. It just looked awesome.
Yeah.
And I would say it's one that we'll probably have to get back into it, I think, eh?
Well, the maze aspect of this is a little annoying.
It is maze-erific. Yeah.
The puzzles I thought were fair, at least the ones I came across. They're all very
some of them get
solvable.
real devious, yeah.
The key aspect where you have to get this key and then run back and open this door just to go to that door to get a key that takes you all the way back to the front room. That didn't really bother me that much, but I could see where that would grind on me after 17 levels of it.
No,
but because it does it a lot.
Yeah, that would get old. But I mean, this is the kind of game. This is one of those games you sit back like, I'm going to do this evening.
Yes.
This is my game. I've got all my stuff here. No one's going to bother me. Turn off the phone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe and then maybe turn on some tunes in the background.
Yeah, because this game is definitely good enough to go back and play right now.
Yeah. So. Get this, here's some wacky statistics on this thing.
All right.
Believe it or not, there was a soundtrack album released for this game that had no music. All right. It was called Dungeon Master the Album, and it was music composed by Daryl Harvey, Rex Bonka, and Kip Martin. Now, you're asking yourself, how did this happen? None of these ports, except for the Super Nintendo version, have music, and the music in the Super Nintendo version is not something to listen to on an album. Well, guess what? I had to throw this in there because of ARG. The music was composed for the FM Towns version.
Oh my gosh!
So
really?
The old FM Towns back again, and some of the music was also in the FM Towns version of the sequel to this, which was Chaos Strikes Back.
Yes.
All right. This actually had a expansion and a sequel, so it was a very popular.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have to go without telling you. Dungeon Master was also said to inspire, was inspired by the early Ultima games, and Richard Garriott was very impressed with Dungeon Master. He was a fan, and he sort of borrowed or paid homage to it in his Ultima Underworld games, which are, of course, the same sort of
perspective,
of that perspective and whatnot.
And in my opinion, not as well done.
Well, I had to say I was not the biggest fan of those. They were sort of panned when they came. The original one, I don't remember being super popular. So this game still has an active scene behind it with mods and stuff. It's been converted to different types of systems in terms of home versions being converted. So when this game came out, it blew everybody away. Now I've got a list here, and it's going to blow your mind. The amount of glorious awards this thing got. So I'm just going to list some of these off, okay? This was awarded the Special Award for Artistic Achievement in 88's Computer Gaming World, Adventure Game of the Year in 88, the UK Software Industry, Best-Selling Atari ST Title 88, Best Role-Playing Game 88, Power Play, Best Role-Playing Game 88, Tilt, Best Sound Effects 88, Tilt. Do you see where we're going here? When this was released on the ST, people were like, this was like a game that they'd never seen before. Game of the Year in 88, Best Atari ST Game of the Year, Game of the Year, Fourth Generation Magazine, which is French, Golden Sword Award, the Adventurers Club of the UK, Best Role-Playing Game, Beastie Award, Best Atari ST Title, Best Game 89, Amiga World. Amiga World was probably covered a few ST titles when this came out. Best Amiga Game, Best Amiga Game in Sweden. So you can get the point here. It was Amiga game love. The ST game had love. Everything had love.
Yeah.
This was a very popular game.
Absolutely.
So, all that said, how much would it cost to pick this thing up today if you were to pick this up? Did you happen to look on eBay? I happened to look here. I'll see how you did. Well, I've got it right here. So, in the USA, if you were to pick this thing up, you would be paying somewhere in the $60 to $80 range for a box version.
Really?
Now, I saw one that sold for $14, but then I saw one that sold for $100. So these are expensive. I saw the discs selling for $20 by themselves. And in the UK, I saw prices all over the map. Right? There were a ton of them. I saw some going for as much as $77 and some going for $21. So there was all over the map.
Crazy.
In the Amiga world, the Lemon people gave this thing a 8.45, which is a really good score.
Yeah.
And Amiga Joker gave it an 88, so it got pretty rave reviews.
And I think there's a fair.
I think those are a little low, to be honest. I mean, I think
really?
the Amiga
8.5. You think that's
low? I think
low?
88. I would go higher than 88. I think this game. Listen, I'm going to be realistic here. Not everyone wants to click a blank wall looking for a secret door. Not everyone wants to eat every 10 minutes. This is a game, and we can appreciate it because of our background. This is a game made by D&D people for D&D people.
Yes.
The name of this game, Dungeon Master, is no fluke.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew exactly how to make a game that we would all get into. And they did a good job. I really actually I knew this game. Like I said, it's not one that just sprung up on me. I knew about it. I'd heard of it. But it was a tremendous game to go back and play. Tedious. Is it my favorite game of this genre? It's not, but it could be with a few modifications. I'm going to look into some of these modded versions because there's a lot to like with this game. We didn't even get to the overall story arc, which is a pretty interesting story arc. I mean, it's an in-depth dungeon. I mean, there's caves, there's dungeons, there's other stuff. I mean, they really put a lot of work into it. It's like playing one large series of modules in D&D. That's what it reminded me of. So overall, I have nothing but praise for the game, and I'm guessing you pretty much the same way.
Same way. And if you want a modern take on this, something where you're like, man, that style of game looks really fun, but I don't really want to go back to that retro graphics and feel. Legends of Grimrock is the exact same style of game.
Really?
In a more up-to-date, and they have several sequels
is that a phone game? It is, right?
No, buy it on Steam.
It's on Steam. Was it ever on the Android platform? I could have sworn it was an Android
I don't know.
game.
I own it for Steam. I played it, enjoyed the heck out of it. Unfortunately, it is something that, much like Dungeon Master, you either commit yourself to it or you're not going to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say, this is a game that I would, to give this thing a full going over would take weeks. I mean, really, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of intricacies to it that we probably didn't fully touch on. You know, magic weapons and the compass that you can pick up and other stuff. There's some stuff that is real. Some spell stuff that's off the charts. I mean, the spell composition was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very.
So there's a lot of stuff.
Very detailed.
Patrons, Brent, we got them.
We do. We have a couple.
And I've got a big list here I'm going to read through. I'm not going to sing like the boat. I don't have his lovely voice. Yeah, but you can, if you want to pantomime or something, feel free to do some sort of entertaining stuff. So we'd like to welcome our new patron, Terry.
Yes.
Which is insane. Brent's wife is now a supporter.
My wife, she said that she watches so much of the show that she felt criminal not contributing.
Period. Oh, okay.
So
she watches so much of the show, she feels criminal.
You know, she works from home.
It's like stealing from me.
She works from home, and she has this going. The major shows, she runs the episodes over.
We need to get Terry an Amiga.
Well, it's funny. Obviously, she's not nearly the gamer that we are. Even to the nth degree. But she enjoys hearing the stories of the old stuff and what people enjoy and learn a little bit of the history. So she said, you know what? I enjoy this. I want to see it continue. I'm going to support it.
That's awesome.
Which is exactly what Patreon's there for.
We love, and all of our Patreon sponsors, and also there's fellows and a lot of our patrons that help get Bo to Ireland.
Yes.
We super appreciate that. Patreon, the people that do that are a very nice bunch. Right. I'm going to mention this before we get to the Patreon people. Bo spent all this time over in Ireland. I've talked in the past a little bit about the strife and infighting in the Amiga community, but there is a small percentage of that. But generally, people are good folk, and the people over in Ireland, and Bo told me this, and hats off to y'all. But they treated him great over there, and he said the amount of love and support and kinship in the room at Amiga Ireland was off the charts. He said nary a foul word said, and everyone had a good time. The camaraderie. He said that everyone was happy to be a part of this hobby, and it was a joyous experience for him. So all you guys that helped get both there are well wishers, and all of our patrons and all of our listeners. But one of the reasons Bo went over there was just to meet some of y'all and to provide some entertaining content from it, because we think it's stuff that people would enjoy.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate everyone who supports us, who listens, who leaves us comments.
You spread the links.
I'm a big mush guy. I could say that Bud always gets on me because I get mush, so I'm just going to cut it off there. But I could go on forever. So let's go on with our Patreon subscribers here, or supporters. We've got Bernard Quinn, Retro Man Cave, Tim Drew, Daniel Williams, Robert Eddington III, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Etter, Rob Flacco Hare. By the way, Rob's got a new episode of his podcast out talking about his career in skateboarding, which I just listened to. It's great.
Awesome.
I love Rob's podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. Howard Nibbs, Matt Larimore, Andy Craig, Shanzo, Darren Lomax, Colin419. Colin419 says, I just supported the Amiga.
Bam, there you go.
Barkbit, I talked to him. He was one of the fellas I talked to in my sad depravity on Friday when I was not in Ireland. Seb Kiernan, Roland Burke, Andrew Monks, Joe the Zombie, John Cook, Dan Ross, Leaf Kaland, Alan Kebab, another one. I talked to a lot of these guys actually.
Oh yeah.
Donald Tyler, Level Lord, John Marshall, our buddy here in state, Matthew Putterone, another guy I talked to quite extensively, Ricky DeRocher, the Creepy Dead Boy.
Oh, it's the Creepy Dead Boy.
Yeah, Figgy CTZ, another. I talk to all these guys all the time in Discord. And the names keep popping up. The Slow Norris. Good friend of ours who has sent us many, many lovely things. Stefan Solgard Mortensen. Edvin Helen. I love reading this just because the names are so cool. Belindo 75. Christopher Hassel. Ravi Abed. He was over there with his show. Retro Hour. Great show. Belindo 75. did I read Christopher Hassel twice? So let's read him again. Yeah, I did.
Maybe he's a double page.
This is what I read. Chris Folds or Chris Folds, the Dream Catcher, Laurent Giroux, keeping us honest. Graham W. Webkey from way down on the border. Some jerk. Yeah, why are you on this list? I cannot figure that out.
Because I'm a paying Patreon since day one.
So literally, you're pay to play.
Hey, you know what?
Where's my money?
Me and my wife support this because
I don't
we want to see
it makes
grow.
no sense to me. How much more? I'm shrinking. I'm not growing. That's the whole point. Lane Denson. That's a heck of a lane. Adam Battersby. O'Brien's. Retro and Vintage. The Big O. Gary the Huck Hucker. C. Brian Jones. Paul Harrington. He was over there. Duncan Styles. The Style Man. Alan Kebob. Anthony. Big Boy Jarvis. Tapes from the Crypt. Another fine fellow. Josh Nan. Speaking of Tapes from the Crypt, getting back to him.
Oh, wait a minute.
We will be beginning to give away some of the mini boxed goodies that Tape sent over a couple weeks ago on a future show or two, and I'm sure some of those get given away at the Amigathon because as you'll recall, Tape sent us many a boxed item. So
we have a lot of people that send us. Well,
we do,
a lot, but we have good, hardy people that send us.
We do. We have a lot of people send us stuff. It's awful nice. Josh Nan, the Nan, Adam Bradley. Jonas Rulo, another fine fellow that's sent goodies over. The THT, Eric Nelson. I listen to his show, Pixel Gaiden. I think I bill it every week, but they're a good bunch. Kim, Tommy, Humberstad, Daniel Bingston, the brutal one, Brutal Barracuda.
The Brutal Barra.
Darren King Coles. Jason, you have been warned.
Ha ha.
Pixels of Dawn, the Pix, getting it done old
Good
school.
Guy, yeah.
And Kilborn Barman. I can't do it like Boat. All a hearty bunch, every one of you guys. Everyone. And we appreciate you. I love it. I love reading the list and seeing all these guys. And if you haven't already, and a large chunk of these fellas have, please hop over to the Amigos Discord. Where we chat and get the inside scoop on what's going on and just generally screw around or sometimes comfort each other when stuff goes south. The various things that we do. It's a great bunch. And so, and if you were interested in hooking up and supporting us on Discord, hey, we're on Discord, on Patreon. Hey, we know we'll never turn you away. We love you. And listen, that some of that Patreon money, and some also just people contributing help get Boater to Ireland. We've got some interesting plans coming up, and so we're hoping to turn these donations into something that is going to be worthwhile and interesting for everyone that's supporting us. We do appreciate it, don't we, Brent?
That's it. It's true.
So let's talk about next week's, Brent. Next week, the crew has spoken, and it's not that. The crew has spoken. And we are going to be playing a game, which I have to say, I don't think I've ever played this thing. Crazy Cars 3.
Not 1, not 2.
Well, I mean, listen.
But 3.
We could play Crazy Cars 1 if you're a dork.
Well, Crazy Cars 1, that's probably mildly crazy.
If you're going to play Crazy Cars 2, and you're sort of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you got some lunacy issues going on. But Crazy Cars 3,
you're out of your mind.
When you're 3 times the crazy as the first Crazy Cars,
that's right.
That's like, wow.
Not to mention, just hey, you're going to get scored. You're getting sort of hosed on this, aren't you? So we'll expect a full report from you.
You know what? I'll have to say, the game I came in on one good game, and then I set on Jurassic Park, which was a bad game, and then I got another good game.
Yeah, we did that.
So,
that dark. What was that crazy game we did? The really dark thing where the guy gets a thing implanted in his brain.
Yeah,
we did that one. So that was a pretty cool show.
That was a good time.
So next week we'll be doing Crazy Cars 3. The Boat will be back in studio. In fact, right now, Boat is in air, getting ready to come back to town. So Boat. Be careful on your way home. So I think that about shuts it down.
I do believe you're correct.
Any parting words?
I want to thank you for letting me let me come to see how the big dogs do it.
Oh, that's right.
If you ever want to watch more of me, you can join us on the sister show, ARG Presents.
The mothership.
It's not Amiga focused so much as it is retro gaming focused, I would say.
And we should mention that coming up in next week's ARG, of course, right now we've got the Amiga CD32, but next week we've just found out that we're going to be playing games on the, what was that thing called? This crazy British computer that we've never heard of.
The
Sam Coop?
No.
What was it called?
The Sam Coop.
What's it called? It's a Sam Coop or Kopu or something? What is it?
It is the Sam Coop.
You don't know,
No, it
you?
is. It's the Sam Coop.
Oh, then why were you laughing at me when I said it?
Because it's just so crazy.
We're playing games on the Sam Coop. So if you want to check that out next week, God knows what that's going to
Seed
be.
was the other one I sat in on.
So, thanks for joining us and everybody in the chat that stuck around. We appreciate you. And I guess until next week, all we can say, Brent, is
adios.
Adios. You left me hanging there.
Yeah, I did.
Why did you do that?
It's funny.
Well, that's trying to hose me.
A little bit, yeah.
How did that go? You thought? Did you like
it
that?
was yeah. I think this has been a good set of shows.
That was a good. That Dungeon Master is a quality game. I think. I thought it was a. I mean,
yeah.
Did we get that? Do you think we got that across?
I think we did. Yeah.
What you guys in the chat room? Was that okay? I don't. Everybody.
They're not talking to us.
Oh, okay. They never do. They never do.
You got me from the runway to my couch. Wow. We have entertained Pixels through his entire flight.
Well, we have been sitting here in these seats for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Well,
plus.
We're good like that.
Yeah, but these seats are comfortable.
Not at all. Why don't we invest in some decent
We do.
chairs?
I think Patreon money. Tell Terry just to cut off for support and go buy us a couple chairs from Goodwill.
You know what else would be nice? If this table was up about 3 inches higher.
Why?
To be more comfortable.
Well, maybe the chair should just be lower.
No, I don't like that. I want. Yeah, but we might have to think about that. These chairs are literally. I don't know if I can get up. I think my spine has been physically altered.
I understand. Well, I think that's. I'll let these people go home or go to bed or whatever they do. It's actually they're about 4 hours back, so it's over there. It's probably near close to 5 o'clock.
For some of them, yeah.
You know, so. Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I'm too blind to see what anyone said, but I'm sure it's all glorious praise.
No, I mean, they like me, but...
that can't be true.
They
Clearly, you're too blind to see what they're saying.
What's that bald guy doing? I can't see anything past the glare. I don't know.
I hate you. I hate you so much. All right, I'm stopping the stream.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining us, and Bo will be back. Don't worry. We'll
hey,
be back.
Guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a fun.
See you guys later.
Have
been
a
a
good one.
fun.
That's
been
right.
a fun.
Yeah, what do you say?
That's the way you're going to break out the channel. It's been a fun.
Well,
you say it's been fun, not a fun.
No, it's been a bit of fun.
You didn't say bit. You just said it's been a fun.
Well, it has been a fun.
Goodbye,
Just hit the
everybody.